Okay, here we go. No, there is no tornado warning, at least right now. Okay, all right, everybody. Meteorologist Noah Simmons here. We are live on this Saturday evening. I just want to, calm any fears that we have out there. We don't have an active warning at the moment, so there's no severe thunderstorm warning, no tornado warning at the moment. But we're watching just a little area of circulation, a little area of rotation that was looking a little menacing and very suspicious here just southwest of Greenwood. And it was showing some decent signs of rotation. So right now there's no tornado warning. Could it get warned here in the next couple minutes? It's possible. But we're going to be watching this. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit closer here for you guys with this. And real quick, want to just check National Weather Service chat here. Again, so there's no tornado warning at the moment, and hopefully nothing gets issued, but we're just looking at a little area of circulation just southwest of Greenwood, and I'm going to circle it for you guys here. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so the National Weather Service chat has not issued a tornado warning or anything of that nature, but we are going to be watching this little area here just southwest of Greenwood. You can kind of see this little bright green thing. And that's some winds going toward the Fort Smith radar site, which is just off to our north, and that's indicating some winds going toward the radar, but also some reds going away. So we have this little area of circulation here, and so the Weather Service is closely monitoring that just southwest of Greenwood. So if we're in Greenwood, we're not under a tornado warning right now, so I want to hopefully make that clear, but we should certainly be thinking about getting to a basement, getting to a safe shelter here, especially if you're southwest of Greenwood and really in the Greenwood proper area. Fort Smith is on the upper left hand of your screen. That's where the radar site is. And we're getting reports here, and I'm trying to confirm some of these reports here of some rotation on this storm here. So, if need be, we'll break into programming if we were to issue a warning here. But we're going to be watching this here. And let me just kind of zoom out for folks to kind of give you guys a little heads up here. So that's that little area. And definitely watching southwest of Greenwood. So if we just jump back to reflectivity radar real quick here, this is what we're looking, right? Showers and storms pushing through Fort Smith. So if you're in Fort Smith, we're getting really heavy rainfall right now, but we're focused in on Greenwood for a little area of circulation in southern Sebastian County, and still trying to get some confirmation maybe if there is a tornado on the ground. But right now we're going to be watching that little area of circulation just south of Greenwood. So I kind of want to zoom in here to Sebastian County. And if we're not talking about you guys, that's some good news. That means you're not under any threat and you're just seeing, plain old rain and some thunderstorms. So here's what it looks like on reflexivity. And if it looks like I'm looking off screen, it's because I have the monitor kind of pulled up here. If we kind of jump to our storm relative winds here, it looks like our velocities are still there in terms of the potential rotation, and it's just west of Greenwood, kind of by Excelsior, if I'm saying that right there. So here's Highway 10 that extends west of Greenwood area. Here's Old Hackett Road, Adamson Creek Way. So this is just west of this little area here, kind of near the Mount Zion Road. 71 kind of cuts right through here, so it's just west of 71. It's this little area that we're watching just for the potential. So we kind of just want to get ahead of the game in case they were to issue a tornado warning. It was looking a little concerning here the last few scans, and it still does look a little concerning there just west of Greenwood. So I'm kind of covering up Greenwood here. So here's Greenwood proper in southern Sebastian County. This is just west here. So some signs of rotation popping up there on radar. And we're going to be looking at a potential for, a really quick spin up area of circulation. I'll circle it for you guys here. So it's west of Greenwood near Excelsior. We don't have any cameras in Greenwood or anything like that. We have some cameras in Fort Smith, but it's not going to be able to see this as we're still looking several miles away, and we're going to be looking through some heavy rain. So I can't exactly pull up any web cameras for you guys, but that's what we're looking at there with that camera there near Excelsior. And we're going to be seeing, meteorologist Noah Simmons here on this Saturday evening talking about potential rotation. We don't have a tornado warning at the moment, but we're actually looking at some potential rotation. This is in southern Sebastian County. I'm actually covering up Greenwood. This is actually near the Greenwood area in Sebastian County. That's where this little area of circulation is potentially trying to, spin up a quick little tornado possibly. It's not warned at the moment, but the Weather Service is thinking about potentially warning it, especially if this little area of rotation that I have circled starts to become a little bit stronger. So we're looking at those greens and reds that are really tight on radar, and that just indicates you have winds going in opposite directions really tightly together. So that's what we're looking at. I kind of want to jump to cross correlation, which just basically measures if there's any debris in the atmosphere. And that would, okay, so there we go, folks. So we have I would have to assume here that this is probably a confirmed tornado, because this is this was right exactly where our little area of rotation is. It says radar indicated, so we'll defer to the National Weather Service, but whenever you get a little debris signature such as this near Excelsior, just west of Greenwood, we'll be talking about that potential there of a tornado. This is in southern Sebastian County. So if you're anywhere else, we'll have to talk about this, but this is for southern Sebastian County. This storm is continuing to rotate here. We'll kind of jump back to velocity in our storm relative winds here. But this tornado warning was just issued for southern Sebastian County there. And it looks like this is kind of an evolving situation there. So we're looking at this tornado warning here for southern Sebastian County. This is going to be until 8:30 p.m., moving northwest at 15 miles an hour. So it's a slow crawler. We'll jump back to our storm relative winds. And here's some good news. Looks like our rotation has weakened a little bit here. So it was a little bit of a tighter circulation here near Excelsior and kind of near the Greenwood area as well. So I have to watch this little area kind of near the town of Greenwood. Our little area of rotation was in this vicinity. It's really weakened, so that's some good news. But if we kind of looked at our correlation coefficient, and I didn't exactly do a good job explaining what that meant. And so I'll kind of jump back to that for you guys. But so if I jump back to this different radar product, we are looking at debris tracker. So basically, it just means that all the objects in the atmosphere that the radar is looking at, are they aligned equally well? So are we looking at raindrops, hail? If that's the case, well, they're all correlated in a high category, so they're all relatively the same shape. So you expect to see a lot of yellows and reds. That's why it's high correlation. If you start to see some greens and blues on this map, it potentially means that there's some different objects in the atmosphere. Potentially maybe some branches, some leaves, that some winds are swirling up in the atmosphere. So that's what we have to watch out there. But it looks like this is radar indicated. It does look a little suspicious though right now, so we certainly have to keep our mind. I usually like to defer to the National Weather Service for actual confirmation. Also, if we're getting any confirmation from any of our emergency managers across Sebastian County, if this is actually on the grain. And could we have gotten a quick spin up maybe a few minutes ago? It's possible, but this is just west of the Greenwood area in Sebastian County. So if we're in Greenwood, let's be in our safe shelter just to be on the safe side. This is slowly moving north though. That's what the storm motion is. So it's not necessarily moving your typical direction of west to east. This is moving in a typical an untypical south to north direction. So we'll jump back to storm relative velocity here. And this is what we're looking at. We'll zoom out here, big picture. Parts of Fort Smith are included in this tornado warning. So I do want to cover those folks as well. Here's our radar site. That's what this is indicating. This includes parts of Fort Smith, the Barling city line there, obviously all of Highway 71 down here. Any areas of circulation would be in this vicinity near Greenwood. And the storm, and why this tornado warning is drawn the way it is because this is directly moving north-northwest. So that's why this polygon encompasses parts of Fort Smith near, say, the Bonanza, Hackett towns as well, kind of near the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. So if you're in Pensacola, if you're in Rock Island, this tornado warning does not include you. We might still be seeing some heavy thunderstorms and some lightning with that, but we're going to be looking at this potential tornado as it moves its way north. So we haven't gotten any new updates from the National Weather Service. They did issue it, and it was certainly good that they did issue that because it was looking a little concerning and a little suspicious there with that tornado warning. And the good news is that the rotation has come down just a little bit, and I'll zoom in a little bit closer to you guys. Getting a little, not necessarily concerned, but certainly have to watch this little area here, pretty much right on top of the Greenwood area. Here's Greenwood High School. So you have the reds indicating winds going away from the radar. You have the greens with the winds going toward. And so you have this little counterclockwise circulation near Old Hackett Road, right along, I believe this is just east of Highway. So this is still Arkansas 10, Highway 71 is just to your west. That W, that is the Walmart. So if you're familiar with that, this little area of rotation, at least another quick area of rotation, is just southeast of the Walmart in town. And so we got a new radar scan. So this is continuing to lift its way north. That's what our storm motion is. And so we'll kind of jump back here. So if we're in Greenwood, let's still be in our safe shelter, just to be on the safe side as we're watching a potential tornado here. Luckily, our velocities are coming up and down, so they're kind of fluctuating. What I mean by that is that it's not necessarily a persistent area of rotation, which basically just means that if you were to get a little quick spin-up tornado here, it would relatively be weak. You typically see these in a big line of thunderstorms. We saw our fair share of that earlier this year. We had multiple tornado warnings back in April, if you guys can recall. And it's for some of these same areas in Sebastian County. So I'll jump back to radar for you guys here. And so we're looking at the Fort Smith area in Sebastian County. Just want to zoom out real quick to give folks a heads up. These are some flash flood warnings just to our south, and it looks like we have another tornado warning across Scott County. So we have 2 tornado warnings that we're going to be looking at here. That we have this one for Sebastian County. We got one that just got issued for Scott County and parts of Polk County in the Arkansas side. So we're going to be juggling a couple different tornado warnings here. So these storms are maintaining at least a little bit of low-level rotation as we start to work our way into this Saturday evening. So we'll jump to Scott County here. We just talked about that Sebastian County. So if you're in Greenwood, the south side of Fort Smith, let's just get to our safe shelter just to be on the safe side with that tornado warning. This is the new one that just got issued here just before 8 p.m. This is Scott County, and then Polk County, Arkansas is just south. So Mena, Waldron is up in this vicinity here. It's kind of covered with this storm banner. We're looking at this little area of rotation that hasn't necessarily entered Scott County, but it's just outside in Polk County, and this continues to work its way northeastward. So we're going to be juggling that warning as well. And that warning goes, if I kind of check here the chat, that one's going to be moving northeast at 20 miles an hour, and that goes until 8:45 p.m. So our Sebastian County tornado warning goes until 8:30, so another 30 minutes. This one goes until 8:45. This is another 45 minutes. So that just goes to show you that we still have to talk about the next 30 minutes to an hour about potential areas of rotation here online. So we'll jump back to the northern tornado warning here across Sebastian County. And you know, some of these velocity scans can pulse up, they can pulse down. We don't have any new updates to pass along with the National Weather Service. And there's a fire in the studio right now. Hey, guys, can you guys hear me? We have a lamp on fire here in the studio. Okay, we got a fire in the studio. We still got to track these 2 tornado warnings here across the region. Wow, this is pretty crazy, guys. So we got some reports with the Sebastian County cell of there was a trees down, roof blown off a barn, and a flatbed trailer turned over. This was near the Excelsior area west of Greenwood, so it was this little area where we could have had a quick spin-up tornado, where that little tornado potentially lifted north. Of course, we'll have to get confirmation on that as these thunderstorms continue to lift their way north. Let's jump back to reflectivity. And I just want to kind of show you guys that we're going to be looking at the potential for seeing areas of rotation. So this is that northern tornado warning that we're looking at right now. And if you guys see a little bit of smoke, it's because we're currently putting a fire out in the studio right now. So yeah, we're smelling lots of smoke here, but we got to keep going, tracking the tornado warning right now as this lifts its way northward across Sebastian County. Keep doing your thing, Trevor. Yeah, if it gets a little foggy here on camera, it's because we have a light on fire in the studio. But again, we're looking at this tornado warning right now, and this continues to lift its way northward across Greenwood. If I look a little foggy, it's because we just had a little fire in the studio, but you got to keep doing your job, folks. Okay, folks, if anyone can hear me, I got fire, smoke. but we still got to keep tracking this tornado warning. So if anyone can hear me, we're still tracking this warning through Sebastian County. Let's look at our storm relative velocity here. If we're in Fort Smith area, luckily our rotations come down a little bit. It's going to be roughly, and it's kind of hard to see where the rotation is, but this tornado warning continues to kind of lift its way north. If you're just now joining us, we just had a fire in the studio, but we got 2 tornado warnings, so we got to keep tracking this and covering this live as this lifts its way northward through Sebastian County. The fire is out, so I am safe, but still got a lot of smoke here in the studio. Excuse me, guys. Looked at a little quick storm track of this, just so it includes Fort Smith area. Okay. So this was moving northwest at 15 miles an hour. And if you're watching South Fort Smith right now, the tornado warning does include you. Luckily, there was a little bit less rotation here. Excuse me. It's slowly lifted its way northward. There's not as much rotation across the radar site and across South Fort Smith. You guys are still included in that tornado warning. And this radar site continues to kind of sample the upper level winds aloft in the atmosphere. We'll jump real quick to our storm relative winds to kind of see what we're dealing with here, and then I can maybe potentially do a storm track. The good news, guys, is that any potential area of circulation has really come down as we're starting to work our way north of Greenwood, so north of north of Arkansas 10. There's Arkansas 71. Again, the winds are continuing to push its way northward. Nothing jumps out to me as necessarily super concerning. I got some water. Thank you, guys. Yeah, you can open the door, please. But yeah, still tracking 2 tornado warnings. We'll talk about that Scott County. If you're just now joining us, we just had a fire in the studio, but it has been put out. So we got that one in Sebastian County. I'll touch on that here in a little bit, but the good news is that the rotation has come down just a little bit. We still have to talk about the Scott County cell. We'll take a look at that. And if it sounds like I'm out of breath, it's because I'm trying not to inhale anything here. So it's about to enter Scott County. This is a little area of rotation that we're looking at just north of Alcorn, south of Blansett. This continues to push its way northeastward here as this storm is going to be entering Scott County. So here's Blansett. Parks would be just above my head. Waldron would be up behind the storm banner. Any potential rotation would be in this vicinity, right on the Polk and Scott County line as it lifts its way northward. Excuse me. Let's do a little storm track on this here. Okay, so here's a Sebastian County cell. We're watching a little surge of green, so wind's going toward the radar here. So let's watch that. If we're in South Fort Smith, let's try and be in our safe shelter here as we have potential rotation near the radar side. That kind of continues to lift its way northward there. So if we're in Greenwood, we had rotation earlier, potentially a brief spin up just to your west. It is now dissipated, so that's some good news. The area of rotation in that Scott County cell is north of Mena. And so that continues for the next 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm sorry, apologize everyone. It's kind of hard to breathe in here. We had a fire extinguisher, we had a fire. We still got to keep talking about some of these warnings. So we'll zoom in here in Fort Smith area. We'll jump to radar real quick. So here's what radar looks like in the Fort Smith Greenwood area. Here's Levac again, some rain. You're not including the tornado warning, but we're watching a little area of some heavy rain, some lightning in the Fort Smith area in the vicinity. That continues to lift its way northward. Excuse me. And then if we jump to debris tracker real quick, I doubt we're seeing anything, but let's just take a look. So not a whole lot to talk about here on the debris tracker, and that's some good news. Typically, you want to see areas of blue and green. That means low correlated. That means different objects in the atmosphere. You don't necessarily see that. As we work our way here back to radar, checking some National Weather Service chat here. It looks like low level rotation is increasing between Mansfield and Abbott, which that might be a new area that we have to watch. And that is that new tornado warning that just got issued. So we got 3 tornado warnings, folks. We got this one for Sebastian County. We got this new one that just got issued here for eastern Sebastian County. This is a new area of rotation for Mansfield, and it goes up into Greenwood and Lavaca. And then this little cell that we'll focus in on here in a little bit later. Yep. Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. I want to give a shout out to NOAA for handling not only a couple tornado warnings, but as you probably well noticed, we've got a fire in the studio tonight. Flames are extinguished, but there's a lot of smoke, and so if you see that, we're tending to that as well. Our priority, though, is your safety, and we're going to continue tracking these 3 tornado warnings. Of course, we've got the 2 that are in Sebastian County. You can see those are covering up pretty much everywhere from Fort Smith towards the south, towards Mansfield, 2 distinct areas of rotation, at which point, a couple of times we've had some very brief touchdowns. Excelsior, of course, had some of that. We've also got some low-level rotation starting to increase between Mansfield and Abbott. It's very weak. This is almost very similar to, let's say, a tropical system that comes inland where you get these very brief spin-ups, but they can nonetheless cause some damage. You can see a little bit of that right now outside of Mansfield towards Dayton. That's starting to somewhat spin up. You've got some other areas of rotation that aren't as pronounced as they were. When we go look at our debris tracker, you're not finding as pronounced of a debris signature as we were. We'll go back into our Scott County cell. There's also a tornado warning for parts of Scott County. This does not include the city of Waldron. It does include Blancett and Y-City. That storm moving towards the east-northeast, that's going to run until 8:45. Acorn, Rich Mountain also included in that specific cell. If you're just now joining us, we've got some tornado warnings primarily focused south of Interstate 40, Sebastian County. We've had a couple brief spin-up tornadoes which have produced damage at times. Damage is likely thus far, what I've seen, is been confined to some roofs, trees down. Looks like a roof was blown off a barn. A flatbed trailer was turned over in the Excelsior area. So somewhat of an interesting situation unfolding here. Some of these went unwarned, so it just goes to tell you, even the Weather Service was somewhat caught off guard by this evening. Whatever the cause, we'll study that later. In the meantime, we're going to stay focused on where the current threat is at the moment. You can see those 2 tornado warnings encompassing a large majority of Sebastian County. Not to say everybody is in the danger. Of course, parts of Fort Smith is out of that warning, although I would say parts of South Fort Smith certainly are going to be included. These storms have largely been moving towards the north, so they're moving from an interesting direction, generally from the south to the north, which is not necessarily common for our area, right? We often expect our storms to move in from the west to the east. Not necessarily the case with these. When you look at the radar, you can see these are going to be some high precipitation supercells, or high precipitation thunderstorms. I would say there's probably not even technically supercells. They're so low topped, but high precipitation nonetheless, which means you're not going to see much, especially embedded within all that red and orange. That's where these rotations are kind of sneakily hidden. Now, the northernmost cell is moving through right on top of South Fort Smith right now, where the airport is, where the Doppler radar site is. And so it's going to be somewhat tough to pick out exact rotation right around it. You call that the cone of silence. It just can't see above its head right there. Downtown Fort Smith, east side of Fort Smith, south side of Fort Smith included in this tornado warning. Those red boxes there, that's going to correspond to our tornado warning. I apologize. There's just a lot of smoke still here in the studio. Trying to work through that and get some ventilation in here. These tornado warnings, I'm going to tell you when they are set to expire. This first one to the north, that's going to be 8:30. The second one to the south is going to be 8:30 as well. So both of these have about 20 more minutes. Our Scott County warning issued by the Weather Service out of Little Rock, that's going to run a little bit later until 8:45. You can see Waldron's not included in that, but the rotation where it would be right now is in Y-City on its current trajectory towards the northeast there. As you can kind of get oriented with the polygon itself, that would take it into the Waldron area at some point later this evening. They're moving somewhat slowly. Noah, do you have a track on those? How fast they're moving?
I can double check real quick, but
Okay,
I know the original one and the first one that got issued, that was northwest at 15 miles an hour.
Okay, this one's 20, so yeah, they are moving relatively slowly.
The most recent one I can check real quick, but I didn't have a chance to check.
Okay. Noah, if I could turn things to you, I'm going to find a mask real quick and see
Okay.
if I can't work through some of the smoke.
Yep, okay. So we're going to be looking at this most recent tornado warning that got issued over Mansfield. That was moving northeast at 20 miles an hour. And we'll kind of hang on. We'll take over radar real quick while Scott gets situated here. So that's moving north at 20. And that's what it's, we got two tornado warnings. I can kind of get a little confusing here. So we'll take that off and let's jump to our storm relative winds here. And the good news, and we could have a potential tornado earlier that was west of the Greenwood area. We're looking at some very weak areas north of Mansfield here. And Scott, you can let me know whenever you're good to go. But here's Mansfield area. There's a little area of rotation kind of near the Blackjack Mountain Road. But it's not exactly super strong here at the moment as this kind of continues to lift its way north. So that's one tornado warning. We'll go a little bit further north here. That one is moving at 20 miles an hour north. And looks like we are potentially continuing here. This tornado warning, or maybe even, let's see here, is not updated yet. Let me do this here, Sweet Master. All right. All right, so this one is still until 8:30. I think they just trimmed the warning. It goes till 8:30, includes Barling, Fort Chaffee, Greenwood. Then we had that one that we were talking about over near Mansfield, Greenwood, Huntington. And so they basically just remains in effect until 8:30. So they're just continuing those tornado warnings. We got this one. This includes Dayton, Greenwood, Huntington, and Mansfield as this lifts north about 20 miles an hour. And we'll kind of put a little storm track on these. At least the somewhat good news is that there's no necessarily strong area of rotation, but we still need to be in our safe shelter. If we're in Greenwood, we're technically encompassed under 2 tornado warnings.
Right.
If we're in near the Mansfield area, the rotation is just lifting north. And then we have this cell, this tornado warning. Right. And Scott, if you're good, you can, I'm not sure if you want to take over the, yeah.
Getting that mask, I was also looking at our ACHE camera. This is going to be South Fort Smith. I'm not finding any lowerings. In fact, I will just say, looking at rotation tracker, the Sebastian County rotation is much weaker than it was, but we are looking kind of in this general vicinity, and you can see there's not only one, but there's multiple thunderstorms there, at which point have had some rotation from time to time. If you start looking a little bit further towards the west here, you start to see a little bit of that sun setting there. You kind of lose a little bit of that visibility, but when you continue going back the other direction, so we're looking off towards the south, and what we're doing here is we're looking for any lowerings, any areas of rotation. Now, these little spin-ups have been kind of like playing whack-a-mole. They spin up really quickly. Maybe they're doing a little bit of damage. I've gotten numerous reports of damage already from specifically Excelsior. I've had some rotation near Rye Hill Road, things of that nature. They can happen even between radar scans. And so as we're looking, we're going to want to use all of our tools, especially as we get closer into the metro area. We're going to keep these tornado warnings for now. Again, these are going to run until 8:30 for Sebastian County, 8:45 for the one in Scott County. I suspect there's a chance, based on kind of some of what the Weather Service in Tulsa is now telling us, that they may not run that long, but I don't want to necessarily let our guard down just yet, given what we've seen unfold this evening. Obviously, something was missed in the forecast by everyone. Weather Service was clearly caught off guard by this. There's not even a Storm Prediction Center risk from this. And while that does bother me, and I know it probably bothers you too, and I share that with you, for the time being, we're going to focus on immediate safety. And then later tonight, tomorrow, we'll spend some time looking back and seeing, okay, what did the computers not pick up, or what's unusually happening here? If there is something that's causing a little bit of spin, especially in this very isolated area. Elsewhere, it's just some rain, hardly even finding any lightning or thunder. But in Sebastian County, there's something that's happening, and I guess Polk County, Scott County as well, right there, Southern River Valley, parts of the Ouachitas, where there's just enough spin that some of these are producing some damage at times. These are often brief spin-ups, and what I mean by that is they might drop a tornado for a minute or two, and then it picks right back up, and sometimes even shorter duration. I want to go back to our rotation detector. I'm going to continue looking for potential spin-up areas. And honestly, the rotation that's there, especially just to the south of Greenwood, it's pretty broad. In fact, on its own, it probably wouldn't even catch anyone's attention. It's so broad, which is good. That's what we want to see right now this evening. When we go into I'm just going to call it the Fort Smith area of rotation. It's going to be closer to the airport, not far from the Doppler radar site right there. Kind of tough to make out simply because we are literally right on top of the Doppler radar site. Did get a spotter report of some rotation in the area there, so we're going to rely on the spotter reports since the radar just can't see up on top of itself. With that said, I do believe that that's also likely going to be broadening out as well. Some of these rotations have largely been very broad, but still end up producing some quick spin-up tornadoes. I'm going a little bit closer there. Keep in mind, if you're just now tuning in, anywhere in Fort Smith or southern Sebastian County towards Greenwood, Huntington, Mansfield, you are included in either of these tornado warnings, both of which run for 13 more minutes. When I look at the rotation, I'm feeling a little bit better than I did just a moment ago, so that's good news. We'll go back into Scott County. There is some rotation that has consistently been showing up not far from Y-City, about 2 to 3 miles west of Y-City. It's moving towards the northeast, which kind of takes it on a beeline towards Waldron, but Waldron right now is not in the tornado warning. That's issued by the Weather Service out of Little Rock, and given the speed of these storms are so slow right now, about 20 or so miles per hour, it's simply not going to be included. Waldron's not going to be included in that warning until it gets a little bit closer to the boundary of that box. If you're in Waldron and you're wondering, okay, is it coming my way? Well, technically, but you've got a ways to go. There is an additional area of spin that's prompted a warning outside of the Channel 5 viewing area. This is going to be across parts of Polk County, Mena specifically there. And so we keep that in mind as we continue to track those potentially moving back into the area. I want to do a reset. We are on Channel 5. We're on 5 News Plus, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. It's just rain elsewhere. It is just a light to moderate rainfall, and that's it. These three specific tornado warnings are confined to south of I-40, very important area to us, and so we want to make sure we're staying on top of this as best we possibly can. Those rotations somewhat weakening, but if you're in your storm shelter, I'd like you to stay put there, at least for the time being. Simply be given that these can spin up quickly, and we want to just be very respectful of that. 8:18 is the current time. 3 ongoing tornado warnings, 2 for Sebastian County, 1 for Scott County. This is radar indicated at this point. When I look at the rotation, it's pretty broad. What I would like to do is give this 2, 3, 4 more scans just to make sure there's nothing that's going to try to tighten back up. If that doesn't happen, if this stuff stays broad, I suspect the Weather Service will do one of two things. Number one, they might just make us wait till 8:30. Sometimes they just if you're so close to the expiration time, their options are somewhat limited, and so they're just going to let it run. If the rotation is weak enough, they're just going to cancel the warning itself. And so we'll be watching to see what happens with these little areas. They're very broad right now. In fact, the rotation intensity at the moment is not even to a degree in which would prompt a warning. on any other evening, but given how things have kind of evolved tonight, it looks like we're going to be safer rather than sorry, and the Weather Service opting to keep some of those warnings in place. If you're in Barling, Greenwood, Fort Smith, Huntington, let's stay put. So one thing that Noah, you're still looking at ACHE, right?
Yeah, sorry, I was getting something on here.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah, so currently I have it pulled up, and we've been rotating the camera here, and it's going to be kind of hard to hear you, Scott, because my IFB's kind of popped out.
No
But
worries.
I'm rotating this camera here. We're looking, and if we take the camera here, Scott, there's a little bit of low-level clouds here on the ACHE camera there.
Well, I started to see as best I could. When you're right on top of the radar, you just can't see much, but it did start to look like there might have been some increasing rotation there. Okay, so this is ACHE looking towards the southwest. I'd like to spin that in the opposite direction back towards the southeast, if we could.
And Scott, I'm going to try and pop my IFB.
Okay, I'm
It's
sorry.
kinda hard to
No, I
hear with the
can't hear me.
fan.
I apologize for that. Given the smoke and the fire suppression in the studio, we're kind of separated for the moment. We apologize for you for this, and we appreciate you bearing with us through this. Obviously, we didn't expect to have a fire in the studio. Didn't expect to have tornado warnings this evening. Interestingly enough, the Weather Service, or let me be more clearly, the Storm Prediction Center has just now issued a level 1 risk for severe storms, which, of course, they're the best of the best, but sometimes these things even sneak up on you there. At any rate, we've got some impending rotation. I have noticed on a couple of other products that I'm looking at that might indicate there's some more intensity in that cell that's right now moving over the Doppler radar site. You see that big round donut hole? It just can't see on top of itself, unfortunately. And so we're flying a little bit blind. Have got a couple of our spotter reports indicating, well, there was at least some mid-level rotation. Once this cell continues tracking a little further towards the north than that specific radar, I think we're going to have a little bit better handle on what that storm's doing. At this point, I do indicate that it's likely rotating. It's just a matter of, is it rotating low enough at the ground at this moment to spark a tornado? And I don't believe that's the case at the moment, but given how these things can change so quickly, we want to be really, really mindful of that. If you're anywhere near the Ben Guerin Park, of course, you can see that label right there on the screen, near 540. You want to go ahead and make sure we're in our safe locations. As this continues to track northeast, what you're going to find is that rotation is moving right over, let's say, there's going to be that neighborhood market right there on 71, that green W. The blue W, of course, is going to be that super center. So if you live in the vicinity of that, let's be mindful that there is some area of rotation that does have a history of producing quick spin up tornadoes that is pretty much on top of you right now. These cells are moving really slowly, at 20 miles per hour. At that rate, you have a couple minutes to get to your shelter, but that's not necessarily an invitation to delay. I think if you're there in your shelter and you're tracking us with us this evening, it's probably one of those situations where you might end up staying in the cellar or your closet a little bit longer than what you're used to. Specifically, if you're in South Fort Smith. Again, the cone of silence, it's just part of the limitations of the radar, cannot see above itself. And so we're relying solely on spotter reports at this point. I did pull up the Tulsa radar. I'll show you what that looks like. This is Tulsa, but of course, when you're that far away, you're only looking into the high levels of the sky. And at the high levels of the sky, tornadoes don't develop there. Of course, we know they develop at the lower levels. So that's not much benefit to us. Nonetheless, we'll continue looking at that. And Little Rocks, I'll show you what Little Rock looks like. Not a lot better for us. It's a tool. Sometimes we have to use it. In this case, the curse is you're actually so close to the Doppler radar site. Blessing and a curse sometimes. Let's zoom back out. We'll get an update on a couple of these other tornado warnings as we continue our communications offline with the Weather Service as to what they're going to do. We'll go back into Scott County. This cell is the one that I will say over the last 5 to 10 minutes has had the most rotation with it. And even then, it's kind of tough to pick out. It's broad, but is persistent, and that's the reason we're keeping that tornado warning at play. Blancett community right now, just to the northwest of 270 near the community of Nella, Northern Creek Road, Stonegate Road, Nella Road. or the community of Ritz there along Heath Creek. Be mindful of that rotation. It's right on top of you right now. I've been looking at our debris tracker. There's not actually any debris right there, but I'll show it to you so you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like as well. No debris being detected there. We're going to go back into our Fort Smith cell, South Fort Smith cell. See if we're any further away from the radar. Not much at this pace. It's really, it's just kind of painstaking to have to wait this out. You can see the overall, perhaps there's some rotation, but if it's there, it's broad at the moment. Broad at the moment. We'll see if that changes. Looks like we're going to get another gust of some winds in Greenwood. Those dark, brighter greens right there just to the south side of town near Coker Street, Marymount Drive, Harmony Drive. Looks like we could be seeing another 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust, and that's going to be tracking off towards basically due north. So I would expect the winds in Greenwood in the next 4 to 5 minutes to likely start to increase for us. Those likely at this point non-thunder straight line winds, non-rotating winds, but winds nonetheless. Noah, are you good?
Hey, I'm good. Luckily the smoke's come down. I was going to say that little wind surge you just talked about in Greenwood, and it looks like, I guess they might expire some of those 2 warnings there, at least in Sebastian County. I was still looking at that Scott County cell. It looked like it was still moving northeast at 15 miles an hour.
Okay.
It looked to be broad rotation, and it looks like it's still south of the Waldron vicinity in Scott County, but at least our rotation has come down at least somewhat in those 2 Sebastian County warnings.
Rotation has come down, but the more I look at that wind signature in Greenwood, I believe we're about to have some gustier winds. We're going to call this a downburst. These are some downburst winds, which is oftentimes associated with a thunderstorm just collapsing in on itself, and it's pushing all that mass or really just air that's lofted above us to the surface. And once it hits the ground, it rushes out in all directions. That can cause some tree limbs down. It can cause some power outages in of itself. And it looks different than an area rotation, and you can tell that simply because of how broad it is. And Noah, you can see this here too. It looks like we're also looking at some pretty high winds now moving on the east side of Fort Smith from Mercy Hospital back towards Central City, right there along 22. That soon's going to be crossing the river into Van Buren as well.
Right.
You know, we don't want any damage at all more than what we've already received this evening, but in this case, we're talking about some widespread straight line winds as opposed to a tightly wound up brief tornado, as what we likely did see in Excelsior, not far from Greenwood earlier this evening. Noah, just checking on you again, like go get some water, fresh air.
We're good. We're good to go. We had a little break, and we're good to go to keep tracking.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you. Again, if you're just not tuning in, there's an interesting series of events that happened tonight. We had a little fire in the studio, and so things got kind of hairy. Noah stuck it out like a trooper. Your safety is very important to us, and we applaud. I applaud Noah for doing that. At this point, we're waiting for these 2 tornado warnings to expire. Unless something tightens up in the next 3 minutes, I suspect they're probably going to be allowed to expire. Something could tighten back up in the next 3 minutes, so I don't want to necessarily let our guard down. If we're in our shelter at this moment, we need to stay put. The rotation on the southern warning, which encompasses Greenwood towards Mansfield, is basically no longer. It's a downburst, it's some high winds, but it's not tornado. This storm has slowly been crawling towards the north, away from the Doppler radar site itself, from Ben Guerin Park towards Carol Ann Cross Park, towards the Arkansas River, now moving into Harrelton. So we're on the north side of the river. We've got some high winds that are probably in themselves causing some power outages, perhaps even some damage in of itself, but not likely associated with an actual tornado, which, you know, at this point, wind is wind, whether it spins in a circle or whether it moves in a straight line. Damage is damage, right? We want to go back out and do a quick area-wide check if there's anything else occurring. We, of course, maintain our our tornado warning for Scott County. Does not include Waldron, but it does include Y City and Bowles. That is set to continue at least until 8:45, so about 16 more minutes to go for this specific cell. Blancett, of course, is also included in that warning. That rotation, to me, Noah, I would welcome your input too. Also rather broad in nature. In of itself on any normal night, and tonight has clearly been far from normal. I don't even know if that would really get the Weather Service's attention.
Right.
But given what has happened, I think it sounds like Little Rock may be playing it a little bit safer, and I certainly applaud that.
I do want to mention, Scott, if you look north of, say, the Lavaca Central City area,
There's a big wind signature.
right, and there's almost a little bit of outbound winds there just across the river, kind of near the Harrelton, and
Okay.
Scott has just kind of zoomed in.
Yep.
Again, it's out of the warning, but there's obviously a strong wind surge near Wright Town, so that would be east across the river, east of Fort Smith, but still kind of watching to see if that tightens up. That would be outside the warning technically, but I got to keep our eye on that little guy.
Weather Service is telling me they are going to allow both of these warnings to expire for Sebastian County. So those have now fallen off the map. We will focus in on not only the rather intense winds that are now moving across the Arkansas River into Crawford County, as well as our tornado warning in Scott County. Our two primary focuses at this point. Rotations in Sebastian have broadened out, no longer pose an imminent tornado threat, but we do continue to see that likelihood of some damaging straight line winds. Now into the Harrelton, Wright Town area. This is going to be just to the north of Central City and Barling. Interesting little feature there. As Noah has pointed out, it's not very strong rotation, but we want to watch that really closely over the next few moments. And of course, we're going to do just that. We'll go back into our Scott County cells. We continue to poke around. If your warnings are just going off, as some of these warnings have been updated and changed for us. Blancett, oh gosh, no, that rotation looks even weaker than it was, which is, hey, good news. Don't necessarily want to let our guard down, right? I look at debris tracker. I'm not seeing anything that stands out, that there's any semblance of something that could potentially be on the ground. I'm going to look at some winds in a little bit different way. Not really seeing much there. When you look at it on radar, just looking for some of those classic features, and not really seeing much of that as well. Now, this warning is probably going to start to flash here any second now, as the Weather Service has made some updates to that, trimming the Polk County portion of that out of it. I do want to go back into Barling. It looks like we are seeing some increase in rotation not far from Barling. It's not warned right now, but something we want to keep a close eye on for us over the next couple of minutes. Also starting to see some traffic accidents in the Fort Smith area, which probably is weather related in some respects. This is going to be just to the northwest of Barling is where I would say some of that is likely going to be showing. I'm going to look at some wind velocity products around the storm as well.
And I believe as you're looking at that, Scott, I guess it would be still a little bit before it crossed Interstate 40, but we'll have to maybe check some of our RDOT cameras there between, say, maybe Van Buren and Alma over, say, the next, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes as that little wind surge. It's already crossed the river. And again, these storms are moving from south to north, so we'll have to maybe I guess I'll keep my eye on that while you do radar, Scott.
Here on radar, if you're in southern Crawford County, I don't like what I'm seeing right now. There's some rotation right on top of Gun Club Road, Hollis Lake Road, Westville Road, McClure Road. That rotation has been coming up over the next couple of minutes. There will be a tornado warning any moment now, assuming that continues. This was just straight line winds, but we're seeing that start to spin up again. If we have our digital team online, can you please send a new push alert, new tornado warning? It does include parts of Sebastian County. They included Barling, but the fact is this has already crossed the river. It's in the Harrelton community right now, south of Ketcher. This is going to be moving towards Kibler. Parts of Kibler is included in this new warning, but not downtown Kibler, if you will. I'm going to circle where this is. Well, that's a cold front. Here's your area of rotation right here. This one is also moving rather slowly, which in some sense does give you plenty of time to move. In fact, it's moving at 10 miles an hour. This is some really slow storm movement. I'm going to go ahead and put a pretty broad rotation track on this to give you an idea of when you can expect it. With that said, this is an estimate based off Doppler radar, right? So if the storm speeds up or slows down, that could certainly change at any moment. I am going to include Kibler in my track so that you have an estimated time of arrival, but just keep in mind Kibler right now is not actually in, well, most of Kibler is not actually in this warning. Catcher Community 8:38, Kibler at 8:45, Newtown at 8:46, and if you're familiar with the old St. Matthew Church, that's going to be at 8:46 here this evening. New area of rotation, that continues to intensify. That rotation's stronger than it was the last couple of scans. What I'd like to do is go back to Debris Tracker and see, is this thing trying to drop a tornado on us? It sure looks like it's trying. Very well could be. There's a little signal here. No, I'm going to bring you in. That may be a tornado debris signature starting to show up.
We had kind of a similar thing that set up that was just west of Greenwood. That was about 30 minutes ago when we first went on air, and it kind of looks similar to that.
It's co-located exactly where the velocity signature is, so I believe there's a good chance we have a tornado just to the south of Catcher right now. A very good chance a tornado is on the ground at Gun Club Road, Hollis Lake Road, Westville Road, just to the south of the Catcher community. This is moving northeast at 10 miles per hour. It's moving very, very slowly. When you look at the radar, the rain mode, you can see it's kind of embedded in some of those higher precipitation values, which tells us it's not something that you're going to necessarily be able to see. With that said, I do know we have some spotters in the field and hope to start to see some reports coming out of that area real soon. If you're in Catcher, if you're in Kibler, and I know Kibler, not all of town is included in this warning, I am asking you to go ahead and seek shelter, given the fact that this is intensifying with each and every scan. That rotation's coming up. It's a little bit broader here. We do start to see debris signature also starting to show up. It's only moving at 10 miles per hour, so that gives you some time to go ahead and get to your safe place, but I don't want you to see that as an invitation or interpret that as an invitation to take your time. We do know that we have a tornado in progress at this moment right along Hollis Lake Road. Debris being wafted into the atmosphere, and that's what we can see from Doppler radar. What it's saying is, hey, there's something up here at the radar beam that's not supposed to be there. It's not rain, it's not hail, it's something that's weirdly shaped, such as tree limbs, leaves, shingles, things that aren't supposed to be lofted up into the air. Sirens are going off right now in Crawford County.
Real quick, Scott.
Yep.
Basically, due to the storm motion of this, with the upper level low, it's more of almost like a northwesterly trajectory there with the storm,
Okay.
as opposed to northeast.
Okay.
It's still moving northwest at 10 miles an hour, so it's going to be closing on Van Buren here momentarily.
It's very strange. It probably is the low level. You're right. Some of these are moving in different directions. So that's going to take some of this closer to Shibley. Let's back out. We can see that entire warning. Van Buren is included in this warning. If you're in Van Buren, I know that you know that because your phones have been going off with this new tornado warning. I would still say Kibler, especially the part of Kibler that's included in the warning, should probably stay put with where you're at right now. But it's going to be better news for Kibler, not necessarily good news for Van Buren. Can I tag you in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott takes a brief break here. This storm is moving northwest at about 10 miles an hour. So if we're in the Van Buren area, also east of Van Buren, especially if you're between Alma and the Van Buren area, that's where this little area rotation is going to continue to take you to the northwest. It's moving at a very slow crawl, but that area rotation has already crossed the Arkansas River. And you kind of see that there as we jump to velocity. It's right on top of Oak Grove Road, and it's just south of the Industrial Park Road between, say, Kibler and the Van Buren downtown area. And it's not a typical direction. You typically see these storms moving in from southwest to northeast or from west to east. But due to the upper level winds and just the nature of the atmosphere right now, this is kind of an odd scenario where this is moving from the southeast and it's actually moving toward you and it's going to the direction northwest. So if we maybe want to do a quick storm track on that, Scott, 10 miles an hour.
It's not going to catch a lot of towns other than Van Buren, and that's going to be in 32 minutes from now. That's going to be, the Catcher community is just going to be on the south side of that. It's a little broader right now. It's not near as tightly wound up as it was. When I go back to the debris tracker, it still looks like there's potentially debris. There's something above Hollis Lake Road. We'd have a spotter there that isn't seeing anything making contact with the ground, but when I start to see things like that show up on debris tracker, I can't help but believe that there is very well likely something lifting some debris, especially that relatively close to the radar beam. I feel like that's going to be a pretty good data set.
Right, and again, you typically want to see maybe a bit of a bigger area on the debris tracker, but whenever we've had these little kind of quick spin-ups thing, it does look a little suspicious, so we're going to have to keep our eye on it. But I think, Scott, you were alluding to a storm tracker there out of Sebastian County, saying there was a a cloud lowering, but it was not making contact with the ground. But that was near Hollis Lake Road that we kind of zoomed in on a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Starting to see a bit more of that classic notching feature there when you start to look at the radar too, which is, of course, one of those. It's a good sign. Doesn't always mean something imminent is happening, but in this case, where it's co-located with that rotation near Wright Town, I think you can obviously pinpoint. Yeah, we've got something that's trying to spin up. It may have. I'm pretty sure what I was just pointing out. It was a tornado debris signature. Question is, what was it in that part of the area? Weather Service says, yeah, it's probably a TDS, a tornado debris signature as well. We do have a camera, of course, that sits on top of Mercy Hospital that, in theory, would be able to see, but I don't think it's actually going to be able to see over that hill and behind the building. I'm going to try. It's also pouring buckets in Fort Smith right now, so our visibility is going to be rather limited with that specific storm. Yeah, I'm just seeing the top of the hospital, so I'm not going to be able to see that, unfortunately.
And it looks like it's still going to be a little bit before crosses 540, 40 interchange, but still just checking some of our cameras. Obviously, we can't move those RDOT cameras, but when the time comes here in, say, the next several minutes, if anything does look a little crazy, I will, of course, let you and Scott know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to keep some RDOT cameras up over here, too. Current time is 8:40. Our new tornado warning is specifically going to be in effect. Let's see, let me put that back up on the screen. This is going to run until 9 o'clock. So, got about 20 more minutes to go there. It is going to cross 540, that area of rotation. It's moving so slowly at only 10. It may take a little bit of time. I'm curious. I'm going to zoom out, look at some other cells. So our Waldron, our Scott County cell, still warned. That one goes until 4 more minutes. So this is likely a situation in which, yeah, I don't see any meaningful rotation there. I'd be willing to bet that cell is going to be, okay, yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. This warning is going to fall off the screen here in Scott County. The Weather Service out of Little Rock is saying, you know what, we don't see the rotation there anymore. We're good. So we'll focus in on this fella here. Gosh, that's a lot broader than it was. You can see how quick these have spun up over the last several minutes. And they spin up real tightly, produce probably a very small debris track, and then they seemingly lift. That's why we can't really trust any of these storms this evening, is they're all seemingly trying to do that. If you're just not tuning in, it's 8:42. A couple of things to pass along. Number one, something went awry with the forecast. No one had severe weather in the forecast, even the Storm Prediction Center today, and they're the best of the best. We're going to worry about that tonight and tomorrow once we've gotten everyone safely taken care of. Once we can go back into the data and figure out, okay, what was missed, I'd like to share that with you. I'll always tell you when we get it wrong, and in this case, maybe a situation where, hey, what wasn't so obvious? Number two, you don't see NOAA or I, because about an hour ago there was a little fire here in the studio. So if you saw NOAA tough it out while the smoke was going on, that's what was happening. We're good now. Got a great team getting us taken care of. But in the meantime, you're not going to see us on air. We're kind of doing it away from our typical spot on the green screen. Some housekeeping there. Weather Service has updated this tornado warning, and they have trimmed Sebastian County out of it. You can see that no longer looks like just a standard old box. They've kind of trimmed it along the Arkansas River. So basically, the western boundary of that warning is now the Arkansas River, which is going to be primarily Van Buren, Shibley, Wright Town, downtown Van Buren. Now, it's some really weak rotation right now. I don't trust it. I don't trust it based off of what it's done tonight. It's not giving us any reason to trust it. It's broadening out. It's weakening. I do think there's going to be some winds and some heavy rain, but that's likely going to be it for right now. Question is, does it try to pulse back up? And that's what we're kind of watching for at this moment. I go back into the debris tracker. Yeah, that debris signature that was there back towards Harrelton, Gun Club Road, Hollis Lake Road, it's no longer really there. That's some good news. We want to see that continue. We want to see this thing fan out. I'm going to go back to just the River Valley area wide. If you're in Northwest Arkansas, it's just rain at the moment, and that's likely some good news. This thunderstorm back towards Greenwood's really pulsed up in terms of lightning. You're starting to see a lot more of that. specifically, a little bit more organization with that cell. So I want to go back in and just see, is there any rotation trying to develop? And I would actually venture to say there might be. This is going to be just to the east of Greenwood, just south of Potato Hill Road. Starting to see, it's really right on top of Auburn Road. So we're probably over some Fort Chaffee land here. Probably not going to get a lot of reports out of that until it crosses into a more populated area where we might have. Okay. I don't know which storm chaser sent that in, so I'm going to consider that unconfirmed. I'm not going to repeat that until I know it's confirmed.
And that might have been an earlier indication. We don't know if that was current or that was maybe a few minutes ago.
I think that would have been a few minutes ago, yeah. It matches with what we saw on radar, and I can confirm that. We saw a debris signature near Hollis Lake Road. The storm has passed a little bit towards that. Now it's closer to the industrial park. Rotation remains rather broad. I'm looking at rotation as many different ways as it possibly can, and every time I look at a different data set, I'm starting to see weaker and weaker rotation. I go back to the debris tracker, no debris being lofted right now. If there is an area of rotation, let me circle where it would be. If there is an area of rotation, it's going to be right here. And I just don't think what I'm seeing there closely resembles anything of concern. In fact, what I'll do, let me erase that. I'm going to back it up. I'm going to show you what we were tracking when we saw the debris signature. And you're going to get an idea of just how intense that rotation was and how quickly it got there. These things are true spin-up tornadoes in every sense of the word. You back it up, and right here, you see where those greens really match up with the reds, right on Hollis Lake Road, Gun Club Road. That is a very distinct area of rotation. That's in the past. That was at 8:31, so that was several minutes ago. That's when we started to see debris being lofted into the atmosphere. And as you brought it forward, we start to see, okay, that's not nearly as pronounced as it was. That's not as nearly as wound up as it was. And it's certainly not as concerning. Now I take it to current right now, live Doppler radar as we scan the skies, put a radar beam through that, and it's just not near as pronounced as it was. And that's the trend we want to continue to see as the cell crawls into Van Buren. It's moving at 10 miles an hour, so it's taking its sweet time. But if you are in Van Buren, your tornado safety precautions need to be taken now. It does look like you're going to have some wind come through Van Buren, Shibley community. That's pretty much, that wind right now is probably going to be pretty high along 540, especially over the Arkansas River Bridge. In fact, I'll go ahead and start to pull up some cameras. There's a couple through that area. Let's pull up this one. Okay. So I'm going to pull up the River Bridge camera. Give me just 2 seconds.
And while Scott's pulling that up, we got to pull it up there. Again, that rain's going to be, so we're looking northbound there. So the rain would technically be moving from right to left there as its storm is moving in a bit of an unusual direction there from southeast to northwest. And luckily it's moving very slow. So as it's reaching Interstate 540 interchange area. The good news is that the rotation has weakened somewhat as we're still looking at this RDOT camera here.
Yeah, this is going to be, that banner is incorrect. That's banners from some other time. Let me actually just turn that off. This is going to be, thank you for pointing that out, Noah. This is going to be 540 bridge over the Arkansas River, bridging Fort Smith into Van Buren, looking really into the heart of that cell as it looks kind of northeast there. That really tells the story. If there is something trying to drop or spin, you just wouldn't see it with all that rain, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's going to be very rain-wrapped. Let's go back to live Doppler radar. The current time is 8:48. Our Crawford County tornado warning is set to expire at 9 p.m. At the moment, the rotation is very weak. If you even want to call it rotation at this point, getting ready to move into the Van Buren community, it does have a history of producing a tornado. That we saw debris lofted into the atmosphere on Doppler radar, not far from Harrelton and the Catcher community, and that storm is crawling now at 10 miles per hour towards the northwest, which does keep parts of Van Buren in the thunderstorm, in the tornado warning. So if you're in Van Buren and you're thinking, okay, I've been in my Freddy hole a little bit longer than I would have anticipated, I understand. Let's just use some patience here and just stay put. These cells are behaving in a very I'm not even sure the right word, a very interesting way in which they go from 0 to 100 very quickly What looks like it's just fanning out and broadening out, and 2 scans later is spinning up a tornado, confirmed tornadoes. And so with that in mind, we want to just go ahead and exercise a bit more caution than what we typically would, even though the environment itself is somewhat lackluster. It wasn't until 2 tornadoes had already touched down before the Storm Prediction Center issued a level 1 risk for parts of the area. And so with that said, something sadly interesting and unique is happening in the atmosphere that's producing some rotation out of these. Elsewhere, primarily north of I-40, it's just rain, good old-fashioned rain. In Waldron, Scott County, we did have a tornado warning. That warning has specifically been allowed to expire. That rotation's broadened out. There's not even a severe thunderstorm warning on it. That's the interesting thing also to point out, Noah. A lot of times around here, we'll start things out with a severe thunderstorm warning as the thunderstorm's growing and maturing and developing into something more. Yep. In this case, we literally went from 0 to 100. We went from nothing to tornado warnings, confirmed tornadoes on the ground, which is unfortunate because that means we can't give viewers that, the heads up that we would prefer. But we'll say this: we didn't wait for a tornado warning to go on air, and in that case, we partner with the Weather Service very closely, but in this case, we exercise some autonomy too. And if there is danger, we just go ahead and do it. And that's our commitment this evening, smoke or fire or not. Right now, rotation is closing in on, let's say, 540, not far from the 540-40 interchange, just to the east-southeast. It's really over that industrial area that is, if there is rotation, I'm saying it is, but I'll just tell you, when I look at those scans, boy,
yeah, it doesn't look impressive, and it's continued to weaken the last few scans as a little wind surge continues to surge past the 540-40 interchange. So the warning still goes until 9 p.m., but if the trend continues, which I think it will, it should be allowed to expire here at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Let's hope that does continue and that we're not playing whack-a-mole with another cell, which is what we've done with this one. I mean, this one went from nothing to something really quick. I want to pull up the RDOT camera. This one is going to be near the 64 interchange, and you can see there's not a lot of folks out on the roadways, which of course, let me pull that up, it's loading. My hope is that a lot of folks just got the message and they're at a rest area, they're pulled over, seeking shelter somewhere safely, off the road, not under an overpass. That's the worst thing to do. The movie Twister made that a thing. It's not a thing. Don't ever park under an overpass if you're on the interstate or highway. It's just very dangerous. Got some flashers there. They're driving into some pretty heavy rain and probably some gusty winds, but aside from that, I think right now I'm feeling a little bit better than I did a few scans ago. If you would bear with me, let's just pull up a couple more cameras here. This is going to be the 59 exit, so looking east from the 59 exit there in Van Buren. This is, of course, Interstate 40. Headlights are folks traveling west towards the, let's say, the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. Tail lights in the opposing direction. There aren't any right now, but those are folks going to be traveling towards Alma. Winds are blowing, as you would expect with this cell. But honestly, when you look at that, probably 30 to 40 miles per hour, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's nowhere close to even needing a severe thunderstorm warning.
Right.
We're well below those thresholds.
Yeah, so that cell still continues to weaken a little bit in Crawford County. Scott kind of looked at maybe a small area of rotation near between, say, Greenwood and Charleston area, but it looks like it's still, below, I guess, warning criteria, if you will. It looks like it's almost getting a little undercut by some of the storm's outflow. When we say outflow, basically just think of the rain-cooled air that obviously comes off of every thunderstorm, and it continues to look a little bit weaker as we're looking at those storm winds, kind of near the Bloomer and just west of the Charleston area, right along the Sebastian, and I believe that would be the Franklin County line.
That's exactly right. Near the Bloomer community. Folks are, of course, very familiar with that. That would be tracking towards the Lavaca area. It's very broad. I hate to even point that out and give anyone any undue anxiety, but there is a thunderstorm. It is somewhat strong. It has a lot of lightning with it and a little bit of rotation at times. Just keep in mind, we get rotation a lot, and almost never does it actually result in needing a tornado warning, or comparatively speaking anyways. So just because we're seeing broad rotation doesn't mean a tornado is imminent. That's just us being transparent with you. Then we're walking you through kind of what we're seeing, and we'll always give some context where it matters. At this rate, our warning for Crawford County is going to run for 6 more minutes until 9 o'clock. Van Buren and Shibley, Wrighttown is included in this warning. Most of Van Buren anyways. They've updated that. Looks like, I'm not sure what the update was there. Maybe just the speed, perhaps. Let's see, what's it moving at now? 15, so it's speeding up to 15 miles an hour, still set to expire at 9 o'clock. With the lack of rotation evident in this cell, and keep in mind we're looking, I know earlier I was telling you we were too close to the radar, and now I'll tell you we're in perfect position to see into it. It all has to do with the curvature of the Earth, and the fact that the radar can't see above its head, can't see on top of itself. In this case, in Van Buren, we've got incredible radar coverage, and so if there were any inkling of rotation, we would have a very good picture of it from radar alone. And of course, we have numerous spotters in that area as well. And we're not seeing those reports right now, not seeing rotation. So if you're in Van Buren, if you would, and I know we're asking a lot of you tonight, on a night that you just didn't have severe weather on the bingo card, let's just stay put. Let's give it about 4 or 5 more minutes. Let's let that warning expire, and then we can see about resuming our plans for the rest of this evening. I think you can handle 5 more minutes. I think we can do it. Not seeing the rotation there. Let's hope that continues. When you look at the storm itself, it's probably got a fair amount of lightning in it. So you can accompany that also with some gusty winds, 40 to 50 or so miles per hour. I'm going to try to turn on the lightnings here. Okay, actually not seeing much at all in lightning in that cell, surprisingly. Yeah, I turned those on a little too big, didn't I? Let's back those off. Okay. You're certainly hearing it. Bloomer, Charleston, Lavaca. Warning is being updated again.
And as we're kind of still looking at the remnants of that warning as it continues for the next 5 minutes for Crawford County, I just want to give folks, at least in Scott County, I know they had a tornado warning earlier, but there was a flash flood warning issued a moment ago, and so they've been seeing some heavy rains. We had a flash flood warning in LaFleur County earlier. So, just be prepared for maybe some ponding on roadways. We always like to tell people, turn around, don't drown, especially if you're in a flash flood warning or anywhere that's seeing heavy rain right now.
Yeah, when I look at the rainfall rates in the Lavaca cell right now, that's concerning. North of 5 inches an hour, you're going to get some flash flooding with that. About 3 inches an hour just to the north of Van Buren, parts of Fort Smith, about an inch or so an hour. So that new flash flood warning, there you go, Noah, you predicted that pretty well. New flash flood warning in effect for almost all of Sebastian County, as well as southern Crawford County, running pretty much close to that Interstate 40 and Arkansas River corridor right there. That's going to be the maroon color that you see, that big rectangle, vertical rectangle right there. That's going to be the flash flood warning that does include portions of Sebastian and Crawford County. Within that is the tornado warning. We're going to give this about 3 or so more minutes before we can give you at least a temporary all clear. I don't want to trust anything necessarily tonight, just kind of given what we've seen. If you're in Waldron, I know you're hearing the thunder. You were also included in this flash flood warning. We talked a lot about Waldron. That cell looks like it's going to produce some fairly heavy amounts of rain, given how slow it's moving. There's a lot of moisture in the air, and if you're out and about at all today, you probably felt the humidity, right? And so that's the translation. You're starting to see a lot of that area-wide as well.
I do, real quick, while we're kind of circling back here as we approach the 9 p.m. hour. There's really no strong rotation, at least in our area, but Scott, if you kind of go down to, I believe it's Polk County, just south of Scott County.
Sure.
There's a little area of rotation about to potentially enter Scott County once again, kind of east of Mena. If we
Yep, I see it.
And so that would put a trajectory into Scott County. So while we have that tornado warning in Crawford County that's going to expire here in a couple minutes, we could potentially see another one issued for parts of Scott County. But again, that's just something to watch. That's in Polk County, east of the Mena area.
Okay, I'm going to track that for the last 15 minutes. That one itself also moving back towards the northeast. That makes sense given where that low is. So that's an interesting dynamic. You've been hearing us track storms moving to the northwest. In this case, this one's moving towards the northeast, just given the counterclockwise flow around the area of low pressure responsible for some of these showers and storms. And that one, yeah, I've got a lot of lightning. You go into Van Buren, there's hardly anything. Maybe hearing a few rumbles of thunder from a distant thunderstorm, but you're not actually seeing that at all in Van Buren. Some heavy rain, though, and it doesn't take much rain at all to get flash flooding in Fort Smith. And given we've seen quite a bit of heavy rain, and some continues. That's the reason for that flash flood warning. Lavaca, I'll tell you, that's a big, heavy gully washer you've got right now. And so while the tornado threat at this moment is relatively low, no seeing any rotation near Bloomer, Lavaca, Barling, that amount of rainfall is problematic. That's going to cause some flash flooding minimally in the low-lying areas, but perhaps even extending outside of areas that are typically flood prone.
At least the good news is that if we were to zoom out a little bit here on radar, we were kind of talked about this big line of storms, at least if you saw me on the 6 o'clock newscast earlier this evening. The bulk of this big batch of storms is continuing to slowly push its way north, northeast overall. So if you look at Sequoia County, Leflore County, they got hammered about 2-3 hours ago. But overall, that cluster of storms continues to push its way northeastward. So at least it's a temporary break, but we still could see a few more storms. You kind of see that near McAllister, Oklahoma, as we could still see a few more of those thunder showers and thunderstorms later on.
Okay, that tornado warning has been dropped. So do we have anybody up in the booth? I don't know how bad the smoke got back there. Trevor? Let's go ahead and take Channel 5 back to regularly scheduled programming. If you're watching us on Channel 5 right now, our coverage is going to continue on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, as always, on 5 News Plus. If you'd like to join us there, our coverage will continue. We don't have any tornado warnings, and we aren't seeing any active areas of rotation right now. And so in lieu of that, we're going to take our coverage online. But if there is any rotation at all, I am not going to wait on the Weather Service. We didn't do that earlier. We're not going to do that again. We'll jump right back into programming. Let me take a look at one thing real quick. I may change my mind. Actually, I've changed my mind. I don't want to go off air yet. There's a little area of rotation that is very broad near Charleston. We've played this game, and I'm not going to, it may spin up. And so in lieu of going off air, and I don't know what we're covering up, whatever it is, I'm sorry, but I want to stay put here for the folks in Charleston there and inevitably into Lavaca. Should this area of rotation try to tighten back up. That seems like the best move right now to keep folks ahead. Let me draw where that rotation is. You can see it right here. It's pretty broad, but I want to back it up over the last, let's say 15 or so minutes, and let's just analyze together the evolution of that area. And you're going to kind of get a general idea that it's the last few scans. It goes from somewhat linear, perhaps some outflow winds, straight line, and then last couple of scans, it's a bit more tightly compact, it's a little bit more wound up. I would still use the word broad to describe that, but perhaps let's hope it doesn't tighten up any further. Of course, that's going to be our hope on any of these cells tonight, but that's the one, a little bit of rotation right there. This has been trying, this flank at times. It's gotten undercut, but right now it looks like that rotation is trying to organize. And for that reason, I don't want to take us back to regularly scheduled programming. So Trevor, folks up at the booth, sorry, false alarm. I'm going to go ahead and stay here. This really speaks to the evolution of kind of how quickly things have changed at times for us this evening. These storms go from, gosh,
0 to 100.
0 to 100 very quickly. And so in the spirit of just keeping folks ahead of the storm, if you're with us in Charleston or even southeastern, eastern Sebastian County, I'd like you to go ahead and just be mindful that this could turn into something. Our hope is it doesn't. You know, the odds probably are that it doesn't, but in the spirit of just keeping folks ahead of the storm, let's go ahead and just be really careful with this one. That's probably the only area of rotation that I'm seeing right now. Noah, I know you're kind of looking at some other things off air. When I look at the overall just rain mode of the radar, starting to see that little bit of a hook kind of develop there. And so you start to see a few of these pieces trying to come together. Does the storm actually end up doing it? Somehow, all of these that have overperformed have done so in somewhat of a, I'm going to use the right word because I hate it that it's happened, but a very interesting way. And
Yeah, almost erratic.
erratic is a good
We're
word.
having
Erratic.
some different motions. That Crawford County tornado warning, that one already expired, but that
Right.
one was moving northwest. This Charleston cell, this one's moving northeast, and that's a difference of what, 25 miles. And so you have two different storm motions. Usually you're looking at a relatively same direction, but just based on how the winds are oriented, our atmosphere, you're getting some interesting storm motions with some of these cells.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I've got some cough drops around here somewhere that may help. I don't remember where they are.
Okay.
If you're just now, if you were tuning in earlier, you already know, but if you're just now tuning in and things look a little bit different, I want to apologize for that. While Noah was on air covering a confirmed tornado, we actually had a fire here in the studio. So there's a lot of lingering smoke. There's a lot of the powder from the fire extinguishers floating around. So we're not able to be on camera. And if we sound kind of rough, I trust you'll understand. Noah powered through it really well. And I certainly appreciate his commitment to everyone's safety in doing that. But if things just don't look the normal way we typically cover storms, we're kind of operating a little handicapped here this evening. And so we hope to get things back to you normally as soon as possible. I keep looking over at the chroma. That's my inertia is trying to get me back over there, but I know right now it's just not something that we can do. But if we can do that up in the booth, please tell me the second so I can get over there. In the meantime, I'm just going to walk you through it with my voice. Noah's going to walk you through it with our voices, and hopefully we can see things trend down here over the next several minutes. Right there along Highway 217, just to the north of Charleston, some weak rotation. It's not enough for a tornado warning. I'm seeing that scan. And so kind of just talking out loud, what I'm considering right now is, okay, do we try to go ahead and go back over to programming? Do we wait a couple more scans? These aren't cells that can be trusted. Noah used a very good word, erratic. Whatever the setup is tonight is indeed erratic. So my comfort isn't quite there yet, but with every new set of data, maybe I'm getting a little bit closer to that to take us back to programming. If we take you back to programming and this thing spins up, hey, we're not going to wait on the weather service. We're going to be right back here on air. We will keep our streaming platform live. So maybe it may be a good idea if you're perhaps... Let me put a track on it. Let's do it this way. Noah, how fast did you tell me this one was moving?
So we don't have a warning on this one,
Oh,
but I would assume about 20 miles an hour just to be on the safe side, just to
Okay.
give people a little bit quicker heads up.
Yeah, I think that's right. So if you're...
Generally northeast. pretty
Yeah,
much.
this one's an interesting one. I'm just kind of talking out loud. I'll tell you when. Sorry. I know I'm sending mixed signals up there. Okay, I look at that scan. Let's do one more set of data. This is moving towards the north-northeast. So let's just put, if you live anywhere within that zone that just kind of popped up, it would probably be a good idea, if you're not already, to start streaming us on Facebook, YouTube, 5 News Plus, the 5 News app on your phone. Go ahead and start maybe finding us there. I do believe if things hold steady with another set of data, I'll probably go ahead and take us back to regularly scheduled programming on Channel 5. We're just going to continue tracking all these storms on 5 News Plus, and then in the event, of course, a warning is issued or not, if rotation starts to pick up, and then we'll resume our coverage back on Channel 5. So with that said, if you booth for real this time, let's go ahead and go ahead and take things back to programming. Noah, again, thank you. School trains us for a lot, and I've never in my life thought we would be tracking tornadoes during a fire, but we are, and you handled that well, and I just want you to hear that from me. I know our viewers appreciate it, but if you were questioning, hey, what's going on? Why do things look so different there? Just want to share some behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and take things back to programming. Our coverage continues now live on 5 News Plus, Facebook, and YouTube. No, stay here, stay here. Sorry, I did it again. Let's stay here. Let's stay on TV. I believe a warning's probably coming. And there it is. New tornado warning for Franklin County. This cell is continuing to show some signs of rotating. In speed. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Noah. This cell trying to come together not far from Peter Pender, Charleston, Vesta. You can make a triangle between the three right there along Highway 60 and 217, that interchange, not far from Rattlesnake Road. A lot of folks very familiar with that. Let me call out a few others. Between, let's say, Charleston and Cecil, you're going to look at Mantooth Road. I know the Mantooths well. Obviously, you guys are going to be in the path of this cell. Annis Road, 6 Half Mile Road, East Highway 96, So you're getting right there along that 96 corridor that runs west-east, up and down 23. You're getting a little bit closer to that, although 23 Highway South is not included in this new tornado warning, but it does extend north of the river all the way up towards Watalula, Cravens. It is the weekend, so if we know anyone maybe camping, whether that's Bluff Hole Park or you get into the Boston Mountains, let's go ahead and try to give them a phone call just to make sure they're aware of what's happening. Of course, you can invite them to find us on streaming platforms if they're not able to access a TV. I don't know if our radio partners are broadcasting right now, but if they do, I'll pass that along to you as well.
And Scott, that's going to be moving north at 25 miles an hour. It goes until 10 p.m. this evening.
Okay, so that's going to be about 40 more minutes. This cell's moving a little bit quicker towards the north at 40 miles per hour. Puts it in Vesta at
it was 25, Scott. Sorry.
25. What did I say? 45?
I'm not sure, but
I don't know. Okay, 25. I got it. I'm at 25. So let me put that back on there. That is going to be Vesta at 9:11. That's going to be Cecil at 9:25. Cravens at 9:43. Jethro at 9:53. Ozark technically is not included in this warning at this moment. Perhaps the west side of town is, but broader Ozark is not. It could turn, so that's certainly something I want us to keep in mind. If we're in Ozark, Webb City, those areas, you're really close, a little bit too close for comfort. You can see that classic hook echo there trying to spin up another area of rotation. It's another situation where it's starting to happen relatively quickly. And in this case, we may very well be on the uptick when it comes to this specific cell. You can see some of the roads highlighted there, 215, 41, 288, 96. I'm very familiar with these roads. If you are, you're included in this tornado warning, which is your cue to go ahead and take those tornado safety precautions. If this is kind of catching you off guard, let me just catch you up to speed with the down and the dirty of what you need to know only right now. We have had multiple touchdowns this evening out of brief, weak spin-up tornadoes, but touchdowns nonetheless, damage nonetheless. And so we want to go ahead and consider this one capable of producing that spin-up tornado. Wouldn't be far from Peter Pender right now, right there along Highway 60. Rotation is now pretty much right to the north by a mile or so of Highway 60, which is going to take it into the Vesta community, about halfway between Vesta and Peter Pender over the next 4 to 5 minutes. This one's moving a little bit quicker. Eventually, it does come very close to Cecil. So if you're in Cecil, I think this is a storm right now, as it currently appears, is kind of tracking directly into the Cecil community. So anywhere there along Highway 96, either west or east of Cecil by a little bit, you want to go ahead and take those tornado safety precautions as well. Our tornado warning will continue north of the river into portions of Franklin County as well. Parts of Ozark, not all of Ozark is included. It wouldn't hurt to take those safety precautions if you just want to be on the side of caution. Cravens, Watalula, Bluff Hole Park, of course, a few that are starting to show up on the map there as well. We're going to focus for the time being, given it's moving slow enough on the south side of the river. As it progresses a little bit closer, we'll kind of readjust the radar to show more of that. It's not that I'm not forgetting about you, but this is moving slow enough that it does allow us to focus in a little bit more narrowly, specifically with regard to what we're looking at here. You're turning that we may actually see something from that, simply because there's not a lot of rain with this cell. You can start to see that classic hook echo right there. When we go back to the debris detector, I'm not seeing anything. I'm going to show it to you. It's a messy picture. I know sometimes these maps can look psychedelic. You're not tripping. It's just dirty data. But we'll continue looking at that. If it starts to show some debris, of course, we'll be mindful to pass that along to you. As it stands right now, rotation is consistently increasing. Storm motion northeast to 25 miles per hour. Lightning starting to tick up a little bit, which also would indicate to us that, okay, we're starting to see this thunder shower become a bit more of a thunderstorm. And so as you're rotating that, let me see, that's, if you would go maybe slightly further towards the east, yes. I'm going to pull up our Ozark camera. This sits on the bluff on the north side of the Arkansas River. And NOAA's got it pointed towards the southeast, which is going to be a great way to see into the storm. At this point, of course, it's 9:13. It's dark outside, but that amount of lightning is going to help illuminate the sky. And it is situated, actually, interestingly, in a position that would allow us to see a lowering should there be one. There's not a lot of rain between that pocket of rotation and the camera itself to obscure that view. And so we're actually able to get a pretty good view into that. Looks like there might even be a little bit of hail starting to come up. Time now currently is 9:14. Our tornado warning runs until 10 o'clock this evening for a good chunk of Franklin County. You're looking live from Ozark into the heart of that cell where the rotation is currently, I want to say steady state would be probably a fair word. It's not increasing, it's not decreasing from scan to scan. And so it's steady at the moment. Let's take a closer look on this. It's looping, so you kind of have a general idea of where that's lifting towards. You can see that right now it's going to be north of Charleston. So if you're in Charleston and you just got the alerts on your phone, all of you probably did, the cell is past your north. And so I can give Charleston the all clear, but I can't give any further north the all clear just yet. We'll be sure to provide that to you when we can. Mulberry was specifically excluded, at least the town of Mulberry, from this warning. You can see they kind of drew it. Looks like probably almost along the county line there. And the way it's moving northeast, if you're in Mulberry, it's definitely close to you, and you're definitely hearing all the thunder, you're seeing the lightning, but the actual area of rotation is going to pass to your east. If you're in Pleasant View, let's say west side of Ozark, Manitou Mountain perhaps, let's go ahead and consider this cell one that is worthy of paying close attention to. It's steady state, and what I mean by that is it's not weakening, it's not slowing down, it's continuing to maintain its current forward motion. Rotation there, it's not the most impressive I've seen even tonight or at all, but perhaps there is certainly enough. It's been trying, the cell specifically has been trying for about the last 30 minutes or so, and it finally got to the point where the Weather Service said, okay, let's go ahead and just issue this tornado warning given it's trying. Not seeing anything on debris tracker right now that would indicate that there's anything happening on the ground. That's good news. We keep our fingers crossed that that is going to continue to be the case as it tracks closer and closer to Arkansas Highway 96. Of course, you're going to be familiar with that if you live in and around the vicinity of that. As you can see, it's going to come close to Highway 41. It's probably going to almost split 217 and 41. Anything on that Ozark camera?
Just a lot of lightning. Again, not seeing anything that I would need to alert you guys that we could certainly see with definition, but just lots of lightning as we point that southeast.
Yeah, that's a very electric thunderstorm. The lightning has come up aggressively in the last few minutes. If you've watched this inning at all, you've probably heard me say, let's go back to radar, please. You've probably heard me say that I like to consider lightning as if it's like the blood pressure of the storm. You take the blood pressure to get an idea of its overall health. And in this case, if the lightning is increasing, the storm's intensity is increasing, and it's a very healthy thunderstorm. Rotation not increasing, but it's also not decreasing. And with that said, okay, last scan it actually decreased a little bit. I definitely don't hate that.
And we've been tracking this little area of rotation since it was between really Greenwood and say the Charleston area, and as it's kind of continuing to move its way northward, it'll pulse up in a radar scan, which basically just means that the outbound and inbound winds kind of tighten up, and it looks like, oh, this rotation's get a little bit stronger, and then maybe the next couple of scans it starts to weaken. And this storm has done this continuously the last 30 minutes, and with this last scan, it's weakened just somewhat.
I'm going to loop this for the last 30 minutes just to get an overall kind of idea. Maybe you are just now tuning in with that new warning that's been issued, and you can see the evolution of, okay, at Charleston, it was somewhat tight. That rotation over Charleston was very concerning. Warnings issued. That storm slowly progressing towards the northeast and starting to fan itself out. You can still see where those reds are meeting up with the brighter greens, but you'll notice they're not nearly as tightly wound up. They're not as close together as perhaps you would expect. This is good news. It's not an invitation for us to let our guard down, especially tonight. It never is, but especially tonight as these things have just gone from 0 to 100, back to 0, back to 100. We want to be very careful with this specific cell, especially when I start to see the overall presentation like this, starting to look a bit more like a supercell, as opposed to the showers that were dropping tornadoes earlier, which is, is something you would expect out of a tropical system, an inland moving tropical system, so a hurricane or a tropical storm that makes landfall. Yep. Very similar to that. You don't even have much lightning. It's like playing whack-a-mole. They come, they go, and basically by the time the warning is issued, it's already kind of weakened. And this is a little bit different on this one. lightning is certainly coming up. You've got that classic hook echo presentation. Rotation, last couple scans have been down, but I don't know if I trust that it's going to stay down. I hope that makes sense, and that's why we're going to continue our coverage here. I had a feeling we shouldn't go back to TV, and I was talking myself in and out of it, or go off TV, and so I'm happy we stayed put, given what we're seeing right here. I will, for the time being, since some of you may just now be joining us, I will tell you that North Franklin County, north of the river, north of Interstate 40 is included in this. The reason I haven't focused in on much of that yet is it's moving so slowly at 25 miles an hour, which is really a snail's pace. And so it's going to be a while before it even comes to the Arkansas River. The warning itself runs until 10 o'clock. So got about 40 or so more minutes till the warning is expired itself. What the Weather Service can do sometimes is when the rotation itself just looks like it's not going to pulse back up, they would cancel it early. I think we're quite a ways away from that. In fact,
it almost looks like there's a little, and I think you're going to look at that.
I see that.
Here,
I saw it over here.
A little surge there that's getting close to the river.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I'm going to pull this up. I see this right here too. I don't know if you noticed that.
That little guy.
It looks a little bit different over here, but it's the same feature. It's going to be right near Vesta. Vesta minimally just had some high winds along Case Road. We called out Mantooth Road. Let's just say the Vesta community, broadly speaking, towards Peter Pender Lane. Is that an increasing pocket of rotation? Yeah, perhaps, but minimally it was some high winds. I want to look at the velocity or the correlation. I'm not seeing debris, so let's hope that pans out. Minimally a good pocket of winds coming into Cecil. So if you're in Cecil kind of wondering, okay, is this thing going to hold together? Is it going to get to me? It's hard to say if the rotation itself is going to hold together, but you start to see some winds of this intensity, 73 miles an hour. We're not far from the radar site, so data here is probably going to be pretty good. You're talking about some straight line wind damage, without doubt. It may be somewhat confined and compact to a small area, but damage nonetheless. Let me call some of those roads out again that it's heading towards. Right now, the damaging wind potential or rotation potential, 215, just to the north of Vesta. You've got Mantooth Road, Annis Road, Valley Creek Road, Eubanks Road, County Road 277. You're starting to see that wind surge move a little bit further towards the north. This is going to be moving closer and closer to Cecil, anywhere between County Road 230 and let's say Brazil Lane, Oak Bend. That's where the rotation is. It's also where the high wind is. And so I feel like one of the two is going to be an issue for somebody this evening. In my personal opinion, I think we often as humans get caught up in whether it's straight line wind damage or if it's rotating wind damage. I'd like to just remind myself, damage is damage, wind is wind. And so whether or not we're looking at a straight line wind potential or the likelihood of rotation producing a potential tornado, let's go ahead and avoid windows, exterior walls. We're probably taking those tornado safety precautions. It's a warning, right? So of course we need to. This is maybe picking up a little bit of speed perhaps, closing in closer to Highway 96. It's going to come close to let's just say just a mile or two west of Cecil. I'll put another track on this. They've not updated the speed, but I think it may be moving a little bit quicker. And so in the spirit of just giving folks a definitive heads up. That was bad. Let me put a track on this that's moving in a little bit quicker to the north. We'll take this all the way to I-40. Oh, goodness. I think the smoke's getting to me. Mountain View Church, 924, the Old Oak Grove Church, 928, White Oak Park, 935, Pleasant View High School, 938, the Cravens community, right around 9:45 this evening. That's speeding it up just a bit, as I think may very well likely be happening. That last scan comes in, and I think maybe we're transitioning to more of a damaging straight line wind potential. That rotation is broader than it was a couple scans ago. But it looks like those bright greens, almost where they turn white and blue, that's going to be your pocket of highest winds. It looks like that may be broadening out a bit, which puts more of us in that wind field that could experience some of these high winds, 60 to 70 miles per hour. That's going to be 6.5 Mile Road, Valley Creek Road, coming close to County Road 40. We're talking the Cecil Community Right, Citadel Bluff, a landmark a lot of folks are probably going to be familiar with. This is going to be tracking across the river into the Pleasant View community. Sure comes close to Mulberry. If you're in the Bluff Hole Park camping, I would go ahead and find a sturdier structure, not necessarily a situation where you want to be camping or in a tent or even a camper trailer with winds like that coming through. And I would say the same about Cravens, Watalula. Of course, we start to get in the Boston Mountains there, a few more campers this time of the year on a weekend especially. But that looks to be more or less some straight line wind potential, less so rotation. Our warning is going to continue at least until, this is 10 o'clock, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Time's moving somewhat slowly.
Yep.
I would say right now, basically along the river is where we're going to be seeing those winds next in the next 4 to 5 minutes. Cecil, you're going to have some high winds. Maybe the worst just barely misses you just to the west. Of course, Cecil is kind of a sprawling little community, but if you talk about the intersection right there, that's kind of what the label is specifically right there. When I talk about Cecil, I know it's kind of broader, and a lot of folks live in that community, but not necessarily right on top of each other. So I want to just give you a heads up. The winds are going to get very breezy over the next few minutes, 60 to 70 miles per hour. That can cause a little bit of damage. Probably can cause some power outages. We've not checked on those. No, if you want to check on power, or someone
Yeah, I'll
in the
go
booth
ahead and get a little quick check on that.
can do that for us. Okay, 124 in Sebastian County. I'm surprised that's all it is. I'll be curious to see if that ticks up with time. 124, our news manager was telling us, in Sebastian County. I really expected it would have been more with that Excelsior storm that rolled through. Yeah, you can kind of see the leading edge of that wind is really fanning out. There's really minimal rotation at this point. I consider that good news. I know you at home do too. So let's draw it this way from a wind damage perspective. Cecil basically now. Pleasant View, 933. White Oak Park, 935. The old Ozark Bible Institute, YWAM now, Manitou Mountain at 938. Cravens at 945, Jethro at 953, Watalula also at 953. These winds are the predominant issue at this moment. I wouldn't be surprised if the Weather Service doesn't drop this tornado warning and replace it with a severe thunderstorm warning. That's obviously their call, but what I'm seeing right now, I am feeling okay that a tornado is not imminent at this moment. That could change, and of all nights, things tonight have changed quickly from time to time. And when I'm seeing them all. Thank you. But you look at that cell, it's got that classic Hook echo on it. And so, overall that plus a fair amount of lightning tells us it may not necessarily be done just yet. This could be a cycle. You start to look at the overall structure as it continues to track towards the north-northeast. It does have a concerning look to it. At the moment, though, it looks to be predominantly outflow winds or straight line winds coming out of that cell, not necessarily winds that are rotating. Could have a little bit of hail right now, though that's below severe thresholds, probably closer to nickel size in diameter. This is going to be, right now, pretty much on top of Cecil. Now I'll bring you in.
And as Scott's just been saying, it's right over near the Cecil area here in Franklin County. We've been looking at the Ozark camera. We have that pointed southwest into that storm, and so any area of potential rotation as that tornado warning continues would get awfully close into our Ozark camera. So we'll of course pull that up. Obviously, you can't really tell a lot from it. You would just be able to see a lot of lightning with this thunderstorm. This goes until 10 p.m., but this continues to traverse through Franklin County. It's going to be at the river here in the next, say, 5 minutes. Obviously, lots of lightning with it, and as Scott alluded to, it's typically kind of a measure on how strong the storm can be. Usually when there's an uptick in lightning, it means the storm's strengthening. If there's a little bit less lightning, it means the storm starts to weaken a little bit there as that storm continues to push its way northward at about roughly 30 miles an hour. So we'll continue to see if the rotation continues to weaken a little bit. This almost looks like more of a wind gust, almost a straight line winds. I know it kind of has that little hook echo or a little curvature effect there on radar, but based on velocity winds, when we measure with rotation, you'll notice that there's some bright greens, and that typically just means that there's some strong outflow winds coming out of that. So we're going to be seeing those gusty winds approaching the river. So if you live in the river bottoms between, say, Mulberry and Ozark, we're going to be hit with some gusty winds there. But currently, it's just this one tornado warning that we're tracking across the region until 10 p.m.
Waldron also has some power outages right now, which certainly checks out with that cell that rolled through earlier. Hard to say if it was lightning related or wind related, but some power outages nonetheless, so I wanted to recognize that. I know there are others around the area as well. Let's pull up our Ozark camera. This is going to be situated on the bluff looking across the river. It's going to continuously show a better view of that hook here in the next couple of minutes, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that. If you've been on the stream this evening, you've probably heard me give you this disclaimer. If we can pull that up, and I'll just talk over it. But if you're just now tuning in, you just hear Noah, you just hear myself. There was a fire in the studio during a tornado warning earlier, so at this moment, we're just going to walk you through it with just our voices alone, and we apologize for that, and we appreciate your patience with us as we kind of get the studio back into some semblance of an operation here. I've got a great team working on that on a night like this especially. So that's what it looks like looking directly into the heart of that cell. Right now this camera is going to be one we're going to watch very, very closely. If there is a lowering of any sort, this is in prime position to see that. Noah, you might just do this. You might just pan no more than a couple of clicks either way. Okay. But I think we're going to be able to see something if there is anything to be seen at all.
So I'm going a little bit further east here. I just did a few, just a little bit more east. You can kind of see the river in the bottom right as lightning illuminates that. That's the bend in the river west of town. And if, Sky, you want me to go the other direction, just let me know.
Yeah, let's do that. It's other direction is a bit more due south, but I do think it'd be wise just to cover our bases, get a look at the entire storm.
It's a little bit further south here.
Yeah, go one more.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, that ought to be good right in there. Let's leave it there for a second. You know, a lot of our storms, the overwhelming majority of tornadoes in Arkansas and Oklahoma are nocturnal. They happen at night. And so it makes seeing them rather tough, but with a storm like this that's so electric, you know, it's actually helping us out. And I did on the last strike there, I saw the bottom of that cloud, the base of the storm, but I'm not seeing any distinct lowering. Let me get a little bit closer to that TV.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything standing out or there's a distinct lowering necessarily. As we look south-southwest and the other side of the river.
There's a chance we lose that camera from lightning here in a minute. I don't know. This is a lot of lightning. Okay, let's go back to live Doppler radar. I'll show you what it looks like on the rain mode alone. You can see that distinct notching area. We oftentimes will call this a hook echo. It's what's getting closer and closer to that region right now. When I look at the velocity, or that's just another fancy way of saying winds, I see no rotation at all in this cell. I see some high winds that now span basically the entire tornado warning, but I don't see any distinct areas of rotation that would give me any reason to be concerned. And obviously we've seen that tonight alone. When I start to sample, can we go back to live radar, please? When I start to sample some of these, you're talking 50, there's around 50 or so miles per hour. And so, you know, we're right there at that threshold that would generally require a severe thunderstorm warning. Right now, they've trimmed that warning up. They have basically canceled it for a lot of southern Franklin County. That will continue to happen between now and, well, if the warning is to remain in effect until 10, I have doubts that it will. based off of the current trends, and I'm going to emphasize current because it's subject to change, right? But based on current trends, I don't see any distinct rotation. I'm not too concerned with any tornado being imminent at this moment. I am concerned, however, with some high winds coming into Franklin County. Well, they're in Franklin County, but they're pretty much right now anywhere between Highway 96, the Cecil area, and the Arkansas River. Soon that's going to cross into the bottoms on the other side of the river, and then you're still looking at 50 to 60 mile per hour straight line winds coming out of that. Is it possible something tries to spin up? Absolutely. Not only is that just meteorologically possible any day, but we've actually seen that over the last couple of hours alone. And so I don't say that necessarily to alarm you. I just want to say in full transparency that while I feel better right now, one sweep of the radar could change that feeling. And so we track this very closely until the storm proves it can be trusted. And in this moment, that's just not necessarily the case. High winds coming through though, a classic supercell. Let's pull Ozark back up. We're getting a little bit closer to that cell. This is going to be our Arkansas Valley electric and wave camera. That hook is kind of not as pronounced as it was. Looks like there's maybe some disorganization happening on that. So that is a good sign. I like to see that. I'd like to see it even more disorganized. But for the time being, I'm feeling a slight bit better about that. If we could, I don't know if you guys hear me up top, but I was calling for the Ozark camera. Okay, I can just, there we go. Okay. Yeah, my word, look at all that lightning. It almost looks daylight from flash to flash.
And as we're looking at that Ozark camera, just kind of been monitoring the National Weather Service chat to see if they have any new updates. They've just been kind of saying that the storm that we're currently on, it's going to have a hard time at least trying to organize. It sometimes pulses up and pulses back down a little bit. And as we've looked at the last few radar and velocity scans, it looks more like a gusty wind threat than maybe a rotation threat. But they trimmed that warning basically just a little bit. So it still includes Franklin County, but they just trimmed the southern edge of it a little bit, and it still goes until 10 p.m. Until further notice.
Current time 9:36. If we go back to live radar, I'm going to do an area-wide reset. We are focused on this tornado warning right now for Franklin County. With that said, I know we're covering up the airwaves all across the 5 News viewing area. I wish technology allowed us to do it a little bit differently, but it doesn't. And so for the time being, we're going to stay put until we know for sure, we're absolute certain that there isn't anything that's going to try to spin up. Once that happens, once this warning is expired or canceled, we'll take you back to regularly scheduled TV. I know whatever was on, it was important to you. Apologize for that, but we'll make the same decisions when the tornado warning is over your home. In the meantime, we'll certainly keep track of these. You can see a lot of widespread soaking rain across northwest Arkansas. It's largely relatively steady. Most of it's light to moderate at times. You got another thunderstorm that's not severe, but it is certainly compounding some of our flooding concerns in Scott County. That flash flood warning continues. You also see some flooding, flash flood warning specifically in southern Crawford, as well as a good majority of Sebastian County. That's that maroon color right there. I know it looks a little bit too similar to the tornado warning color, but that's what that is. And we, of course, as we well know, it doesn't take a lot of water to result in some flooding issues in Fort Smith, especially downtown. And we had a lot. Some of the rainfall rates on this were several inches per hour. And given these storms have moved so slowly this evening, well, we've picked up a lot of rain. And while we need it, you never want to get it all at once like that. The result is, well, you've got some flooding, and that is unfortunate for us this evening. I'm going to go back into this specific cell. Let's see what the newest data holds for it. That hook, yeah, okay, it tried to become a bit disorganized, but it's a little bit more organized now as it crosses just to the north of Cecil, getting ready to cross the river. You start to see a little bit more of a pocket like this, and this is ringing very reminiscent of our Crawford County tornado earlier, just outside of Mulberry. And this is why I wanted folks in Bluff Hole Park to seek sturdier shelter. That pocket of wind right there is likely 60 to 70 miles per hour. I'm going to ask the radar how quick it estimates those winds moving. Yep, 60 right there, moving into Pleasant View to Mulberry. It's a smaller pocket of wind, but I want to watch that very closely in the event that that is the next area of rotation. If there were to be one, I'd watch that closely. The winds over the hook itself, they're just almost non-existent. So that's, in one sense a good news, but you have to see where these storms are going to evolve and how they're going to evolve elsewhere. And that may be something that we have to consider over the next several minutes. Here's what it looks like on radar on the back side of it there. Yeah, okay. Some organization to it, specifically on both, let's say, near Bluff Hole Park and then just to the north of Cecil, two kind of distinct areas there. One's a little bit more organized than the other, but that's not to say these aren't specifically, what's the word I'm looking for? Evolving. Thank you. I don't know how you're doing it with the smoke because it's getting me.
Yeah,
the smell.
It's a little tough.
Yeah, it's all good. So you see this rolling into Ozark. You see this rolling into Pleasant View, Cravens. That's where our warning is going to run for 20 more minutes, technically till 10 p.m. I'm curious as to what we end up seeing with this warning. The rotation trends for the last 10 minutes have been down, but that wind signature is pretty broad. In fact, just clicking back on it right there, I can see a bit more wind signature than even just a few minutes ago. It's kind of got that broader look to it. We'll go in a little bit closer here. So this is going to be right along Mattie Road, Hickory Road, Highway 64 between, let's say, Mulberry and Pleasant View, anywhere along Interstate 40, right there near the Franklin-Crawford County line, points towards Cravens. You got some high winds, and those winds now starting to extend a little bit closer into, let's say, the Ozark area. In fact, you start to see some of those higher signatures along Popham Bottoms Road, Manitou Mountain. You're kind of within that zone where we're starting to see a broader area of some straight line winds. I'm going to circle those for us. You can see right here, almost entirely now, the strongest of winds have crossed the river and on the north side of the river in western Franklin County. Those are moving towards the northeast. And so if you live along 64, let's say between Bluff Hole Park and let's even just say West Ozark for that matter, maybe let's say 23 there, I think you need to get ready for some 50 to 60 mile per hour straight line winds. That can do a little bit of damage. In this pocket on top of Pleasant View right now, I wouldn't even be surprised to see if winds are north of 60, maybe closer to the 70 mile per hour range. And so that enough can do some damage. It's no different than a weak tornado. It's winds, and it's just, instead of blowing in a circle, it's blowing in a straight line. That new scan came in, kind of see two areas there. The storm's evolving. It's undergoing some changes right now, and you can kind of see that happening in real time as that storm slowly progresses towards the northeast, still at 25 miles an hour, which is relatively slow for these storms. In some sense, that's good. It gives a lot of folks some time to prepare. On the other hand, it may give you a lot of time in the shelter this evening, which is where a lot of folks probably are right now in this tornado warning in Franklin County.
And that little wind surge that we were looking at, that was near Bluff Hole Park, which the continued trajectory is going to be just north. And so there's a RDOT camera there at that Mulberry exit on Interstate 40. We can't tell a whole lot from it just because, well, we got to wait till lightning illuminates it, and we can't really tell how strong those winds are, but just something to keep in mind here the next few minutes if we were to take a look at it. And as we continue to kind of watch this tornado warning, at least the good news here as we're looking in Franklin County, if you're just now joining us as we're breaking into programming here, it's just one tornado warning. It still goes until 10 p.m., but the good news that Scott and I have been looking at is that the wind, at least the rotation, has come down just a little bit, but we still have some strong gusty winds embedded within this thunderstorm between, say, near the town of Mulberry and just east.
Almost feels like it's slowing down just a bit. It was already slow to begin with, and now I feel like it's moving a little bit slower. So we'll continue our footing here. 10 o'clock is when this warning expires. Rotation has consistently been down over the last several minutes. I suspect, given the night the Weather Service has had, they might just be playing it safe and keeping this in effect, given the unusual erratic, to use Noah's word, erratic nature of some of these thunderstorms. This one's the strongest of which right now. I do know we have a lot of reports of flooding in Fort Smith and surrounding areas that I've not been able to get to. But no, I do not. I have nothing. So we're going to get that to you soon. They're going to bring me a printed copy of some of that information, and we'll provide that to you.
And I can check the reports here in case anyone has texted anything in.
Yeah, I know we're getting a lot of texts. Check Teams real quick. I think there's some information in there for us as well. That's going to be valuable. If you're just now tuning in with us, we continue our coverage. Okay, here's some information. This is going to be Old Greenwood Road from Zero Street to Savannah. That's blocked due to standing water. Midland and North North Albert Pike Avenue, Midland and Plum, Midland to 50th, 271 at Texas, Waldron Road to Rogers, eastbound lanes to 540, Kincaid, Towson Avenue to O Street, South O Street, Old Greenwood Road to Phoenix Avenue in front of the McDonald's. There are water emergencies, flooded motorists that people are being tended to. And so that's in Fort Smith. That's Sebastian County, broadly speaking. And so we want you to know and be aware of that there's probably a reason to stay put if you don't have to be out about on the roadways here this evening. I'm going to do this. If you're at home and you can safely send us a report, we would welcome that, only if you can do so safely. Please don't go try to look for damage in the flood, the flooded roadways. We really don't want that at all. Only if you can safely let us know kind of what you're seeing. 479-785-5000. Those text messages come straight to us here. Comes to Noah, myself. Be sure to do this. This is really helpful. Include a location. I don't necessarily need your address, but if you could give me some cross streets so I know exactly kind of where we're looking at, and of course your name so I can give you proper credit. That's really important to me and Noah, is to give you credit for being our eyes and our ears. Again, that number here on your screen, 479-785-5000. If you can send us a report and do so safely, we would appreciate it. Our tornado warning continues for 14 more minutes for Franklin County. I'm going to go back into the velocities. Has anything changed? No, it's still a damaging wind threat. I see no rotation right there.
Yeah, well, I continue to look at that, Scott. I'm going to go through some reports here that people have texted us throughout the last, say, hour, just because we've kind of been locked in and, kind of focusing in on some of these radar reports. But I'm going to take a look at some of the reports here that we're getting, at least we'll go within the last half hour, and I'll go a little bit further back as well. But we were getting reports that some folks in Waldron were without power. We kind of passed those power outages along. Again, I'm sorry if we are breaking into whatever the regularly scheduled program is. When you have potentially lives and property in danger, we got to do what we got to do. And so we're continuing to kind of check on this here.
If we could, let's pull up the Ozark camera real quick. That hook, that appendage, should there be something, is pretty close to that camera. So I've got that pulled up, pointed in a general direction. Lightning is definitely down, and that's a good sign. It's still frequent, but it's not as frequent as it was the last time we looked at it, when it was near constant, lighting up the sky. Got this kind of looking back off towards the south-southwest from Ozark. Soon I'm going to turn it west, but the mountain's going to get in the way, and so it's not going to be as much of a use for us. But for the time being, what I'm looking for is one of those lightning strikes. Start to look at the bottom of the cloud, the base of the cloud. Is there an appendage? Is there a lowering? Not necessarily seeing much of anything with that. Bump towards the bit more due west just to make sure. We wait on another lightning strike. You kind of see the river barely at the bottom. Okay. Yeah. Let's give it one more second. I like the fact that the lightning is down.
Yeah, that was the other thing I noticed, Scott, as we were kind of looking at Ozark came in the last 15 minutes. Really, like, say, 30 minutes ago, the lightning was almost every 1 to 2 seconds. Now it's really come down, which usually means that storm is weakening. Yeah,
I think so. And with that said, and I believe that to still be true, it's not necessarily over. And what I'd like to do is go back to live radar. If we could do that, it still looks to me predominantly straight line wind, but you start to see this little pocket that, okay, that's a little bit tighter than maybe it was earlier. And so it does show, a little bit of concern, pretty much right there along Highway 64 between, let's say, Manitou Mountain back over towards Lone Elm Road. It's broad enough. Do have a spotter report indicating there perhaps could have been a bit of a lowering. You know, obviously we didn't see that on the camera, but that's not to say that it didn't happen even just for a brief moment. This is going to track closer into Cravens. It's pretty much on a heading towards Cravens, directly into the Cravens community, which I know is another one of those widely sprawling areas. So Wire Road, Bonneau Bottom Road, Forest Trail, just to name a few, Lone Oak Road. I'll zoom in a little bit closer here. Scenic View Road. Gosh, back in the day, there was a great storm spotting spot. I think it was on Scenic View Drive. I think I would end up out there a lot, looking back up towards the west. That's probably moving right over that area right now, which puts it in the next 2 to 3 minutes on top of Interstate 40. I don't believe RDOT has any cameras right there. In fact, the nearest one's going to be Ozark or Mulberry, and those aren't really going to do us much of any good. So we won't waste time with that.
And Scott, forgive me if you already read these out because I was looking at other stuff, but I'm assuming, did you read out the flood alerts? And
Yeah,
okay,
those,
I thought so.
Several roads inundated with flooding across Fort Smith. Water rescues seemingly underway across parts of the town there. And so, that flash flood warning is in place for good reason. It's not necessarily one of those that you can just necessarily ignore. I think we do have ongoing serious flooding in the area, and that has trapped some motorists. And so we want to, number one, give emergency crews space to tend to them. Number two, we don't need to add any more victims to the flooding. And so if you can stay put for a few minutes in Fort Smith, let some of those waters recede, that's probably going to be a good bet for you. There's still even some rain falling in Van Buren right now, parts of Fort Smith, and that's only going to exacerbate the already, concerning situation when it comes to those floods. Just taking a look at as much information as possible. I'm looking for, okay, is this thing trying to spin up? If it's trying, it's not happening right now. This is primarily some straight line winds, and they're high, 50 to 60, pretty much right now along US 64 and Interstate 40 between the Crawford Franklin County line. Let's just go ahead and go to Highway 23. I think that's broad enough. Gives you a good idea in that zone where those highest winds are. And it's starting to wrap around a little bit there. Do you see the latest one? It ain't much, but
yeah,
tells me it's not ready just to give up, which is what this cell has done all evening long, unfortunately.
Yep. And I've just kind of sifting through reports, and I haven't gotten through a lot of them, but I haven't necessarily seen any substantial damage reports. The only really, I guess the bulk of the damage reports, and it hasn't been necessarily substantial, was near just west of Greenwood near Excelsior, where we had a brief touchdown potentially there with a tornado. That was about 8 p.m.
Sorry, can we pull the Ozark camera up real quick? I saw something I want to get on air as quick as possible. Okay, I do see a bit of a lowering. It's hard to tell if it's scud. Wait for another lightning strike and look to the middle to the right side of your screen. Wait for it. It's moving slowly enough that it should still be there once we get a lightning strike. Come on now. Yeah, I think yeah. Did you see that? That was rough. Wait for it. Let's get one more lightning strike. I think I do see a bit of a lowering there on the west side of Ozark.
And this is pointed west-southwest, roughly?
This is almost due west at this
Due west.
point. I'm going to pass this along to the Weather Service. You want to pick things up, Noah?
Again, the rotation, it's not overly strong, and Scott and I have kind of been alluding to that the last 5-10 minutes. But there's certainly some strong winds crossing Interstate 40 between Mulberry and Ozark right now. And I'd have to bet some of those winds are approaching 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure the Weather Service was aware we're seeing that. They can make some decisions based off of that additional information. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Let's go back to live radar. That's where we're at right now. Tornado warning set to continue for the next 6 minutes. They did tell us that based off of trends, they plan to let the warning expire. You know, what do those trends do in the next 6 minutes is the big question, and we've seen that go awry a couple of times tonight. Weak rotation at best. That cell is really being undercut by this development towards the south, which I think may be helping us a little bit. You start to see that southernmost activity where those reds and yellows are. That is kind of getting in the way of what was an unimpeded area of just straight inflow into that storm that it was taking advantage of. That is kind of going to help us out should that be the case. Now, sometimes you can get some cell mergers and that can intensify a thunderstorm, but generally that's going to be several minutes from now. For the time being, let's hope it just gets in the way, kind of undercuts some of that, and no longer becomes an issue. But for the time being, it is. We'll have to also see if that southernmost cell, which wants to show a little bit of something there just to the north of Clarksville, what is that looking like on velocity? Yeah, there's some weak rotation near Clarksville as well. I hate to say it, but there it is, that little pink spot right there, right along Highway 41.
Yeah, I mean, at least the good news is it does look relatively weak.
East of 41, I should say.
And sometimes these things, it'll pulse up and it looks a little suspicious, then the next couple of scans it's gone and we don't have anything to worry about, so we'll keep our eye on that.
I'd feel better about it if it didn't co-locate with that hook. Let's continue tracking that. So you kind of got two different storms there. The northern one is the one that's the warning is for, and it's likely going to be allowed to expire in the next 4 minutes. I don't see any reason that they're going to keep it. When I look at the rotation there, I see some high winds, but I don't necessarily see rotation.
Yeah, definitely a strong wind surge there, just northeast of Bluff Hole Park, crossing 40.
Yeah.
Which we do have a camera, and I can pull it up real quick. Or I guess you can pull it up, Scott. There. Not sure if we can tell anything.
Oh, the Mulberry camera. You're right. Yeah, I'm going to take this full. This is going to be along Interstate 40 at Mulberry. It's looking towards the west, so it's going to be looking in an area that isn't actually the most intense part of the cell, but you can see that it is somewhat intense. You can see traffic's moving really slowly, as you would expect. Very heavy downpours, likely some very strong winds rolling right through this area. I was a little bit nervous for folks that may be camping in the area. It is a Saturday night, it's, early summer Saturday night. Always get a little nervous this time of the year with cells like this and folks getting the right warning. So I'm hopeful that if you know anyone out and about camping, you might just point them to an app or a streaming service just to make sure they can stay up to date with the weather that's rolling through. We'll, of course, continue streaming live on Facebook and YouTube until we know the threat's passed, and, of course, on 5 News Plus as well. Let's go back to live radar as we continue to track this cell. Lifting towards the north. It's moving relatively slowly at about 25 miles per hour, which is faster than the others, but still, it's slow. In fact, you actually could argue it's slowed down just a little bit. Boy, there's some high wind pockets right there. There's no question. Right where that camera was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's going to be right along Miller Road, Wire Road, Bonneau Bottoms, Middle Ridge Road. So we're really in that Cravens community right there. If you've got those high winds right now, you know it because they're unforgiving. And with the storm moving as slow as it is, it's not necessarily going to pass you quickly, certainly not as quickly as you'd hope. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's not an additional, minimally a severe thunderstorm warning issued for northern Franklin County as that cell continues to lift towards the north and east. So maybe if you're in White Rock Mountain, Cass, Shores Lake, Watalula, gosh, I would even say Birds Adventure Center, if you're around the Turner Bend campgrounds, definitely need to know you've got a strong thunderstorm coming your way. Our hope is that it weakens. Our hope is the rotation continues to stay as low as it is right now, but you want to be mindful of that. Okay, just some housekeeping notes here. Our 10 o'clock newscast is starting at 10:22. I don't know, I guess whatever was on air is delaying us. Okay, WNBA went long, and of course we needed to cover over that tonight. And so 10:22 is when your 10 o'clock newscast will start, and the news team is aggressively working to gather more information and reports about not only the flooding that's happening in Sebastian County, but as well as the apparent tornado touchdowns, at least in Excelsior, and perhaps even other parts of southern Sebastian County that definitely occurred at the early onset of this event. Hey, if you need water or more fresh air, please.
We're good.
Okay.
We are good.
If you're just now tuning in, okay, there we go. 10 o'clock, our tornado warning has expired. That's good news. We've been here before, and we stayed on air because there was some rotation that we thought was going to go tornado warned, and it did. So before we take you back to TV, let's go ahead. Okay. Yeah, so I'm told we have some damage photos from Excelsior. Let's look at some radar, and we'll get to those here in just a moment. No tornado warnings. We have some flash flood warnings. I want to look at the velocities. I want to look at winds. Is there any other rotation that's going to result in us having to break right back into programming, cover some more damage, give folks some heads up? You know, the Clarksville rotation, it's there, but it's really weak. I still see those high winds, about 50 or so miles per hour, right in the Cravens, what you would consider Cravens proper, right along Wire Road, Royal Oak Road, Middle Ridge Road. That's it for rotation. So I feel relatively good about that. If we want to go ahead and take some photos from Excelsior earlier, where we likely had a tornado. Okay, so this is from Hendricks Road in Excelsior. So let me get a little bit closer. That's the barn, yeah, which, you know, I hate it for whoever's barn that was. But, you know, probably a weaker structure. Noel, thank you so much for sending that in to us. What else do we have? Our number here, as we're rolling through these, is 479-785-5000. You can text us any photos you got there. Half mile to the east of the radar on Rye Hill Road. Okay, so this came in as the cell itself was passing over the radar site, and we used some spotter reports, including this person who didn't include their name, but I want you to know whoever you are, we appreciate you dearly tonight for sending that in to us. This was taken at 8:20 in Fort Smith. Looks like that's maybe a video. So this is going to be some of that street flooding, and you can see even in the ditch there, it's rushing. You know, whatever that guy is doing he's not doing the right thing. He's crossing a flooded roadway, and we hate that. That car itself, I mean, that's going to be caught up in some floodwaters right there. That car, unfortunately, may have a little bit of damage with that. This was Ozark looking towards Charleston at 9:20 from Matthew Ham. So this was when that tornado warning was issued, or shortly thereafter when it was issued for that rotation coming out of the Charleston community. It's that same cell that just had the warning expire. Matthew, appreciate you. I know you've sent us a few reports over the years. Witcherville on Nickeltown Road. This is from Rick Robbins. Witcherville was also one of those areas that was initially looking at tornado damage. That, you know, the Weather Service has to come actually officially declare it tornado damage, but I'll tell you, when I see debris on radar, it's probably a tornado. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, right? We'll wait on their official ruling, though. This is Chrissy Keaton. This was taken at 8:40 North Fort Smith facing Van Buren. I suspect that was when that timing would match up when we were looking at a tornado-warned storm tracking in southern Crawford County. It also showed a tornado debris signature near Harrelton, Hollis Lake Road area, Gun Club Road, and that moved closer to Van Buren. And this is indeed Hollis Lake Road. Is this a picture or a video? Okay, Hannah sent us this photo. It looks like Hannah may have captured the funnel, and it's very possible that funnel is making contact with the ground. You got to look really closely. You know, I suspect if I'm Hannah seeing this out the back porch, I'm not too worried about getting a clear picture, but that looks certainly like the funnel cloud coming out of that. Again, our number here is 479-785-5000. I'm ready to take us back to programming. I don't see any rotation at the moment. We will continue tracking this very closely over the next, well, all night long until there's nothing left on radar. If something does try to spin up, we'll be right back here. A couple of housekeeping notes I want to pass along to you. I said this earlier in the evening, you know, something went awry tonight. Something in the forecast was missed by literally everybody. Storm Prediction Center had zero risk in place. You know, we talk about the leveled risk. There wasn't even one of those. And gosh, those are a dime a dozen. You know, as well as I know, we get a lot of those. That wasn't even in place. Weather Service missed some warnings. And so tonight's going to be a lesson for all of us. And I share some responsibility in that. I want you to know that and speak very frankly with you. We're going to go back. We're going to study, see what was missed, and see what we can learn from tonight. And we'll do that tonight and into tomorrow. Number two, there was a fire in the studio tonight while we were covering tornadoes. And so if things look a little bit differently right now and have looked differently, in fact, you don't see us at all, there's been a lot of smoke and a lot of the issues from the fire extinguishers and things of that nature here. And we apologize for that, number one, but we too appreciate your patience as we've kind of dealt with those unforeseen obstacles. I want to give my colleague credit. Noah Simmons never left the wall tracking tornadoes, inhaling a lot of smoke while I was doing it. And so I just want to shout out that his dedication is noted and appreciated. With that, let's go ahead and take Channel 5 back to regularly scheduled programming. Your 5 News at 10. We'll start at 10:22 tonight. It was delayed because of the WNBA. Yes, let's stay on stream for a little bit longer. If you're watching us on stream, and I hope you'll understand, we're going to mute our mics and go find some additional water. The folks here brought us plenty of water. Some water, some cough drops, things of that nature. We'll be right back if we could just mute our mics. Also want to give a shout out to our producer, Luke, and Trevor, who not only produced the show tonight, got us on air, but they were also manning fire extinguishers, which is in many ways just as important as tracking a tornado. And so we appreciate that as well. We're going to mute our mics. We'll be right back here in just a few minutes. We'll continue tracking these storms. And then, of course, the 5 News at 10 starts at 10:22.